Hey, Smite fans, and welcome back to the Smite Pro League, powered by Alienware. And hold, what's that? I'm actually getting some really urgent news right now from production. Turns out we've got a little bit of a star here with Dolson.
Don't say anything. Just sit there, be still. Oh, the camera's on us. Okay, great. So this is the Maxonomic Smite chart. It's so comfortable that you won't ever want to leave it. You don't even have to be convinced to sit in this chair for how long it is. The rotation settings, second to none. You could be saran wrapped to a chair like this. I mean, that's a possibility. You could be saran wrapped to a chair like this. The Smite Battleground of the Gods Maxonomic chair. And it requires no convincing, no coercion. You don't have to force somebody to sit in this chair for hours on end because it's just that comfortable. As a matter of fact, look how happy Tristan is to be sitting in this chair. This man couldn't be any more thrilled to be sitting uncoerced in the Smite Maxonomic chair. You've got great hand settings just in case you were to be saran wrapped in a chair like this. You have the ability to adjust where your hands might sit. Anyway, the Smite Maxonomic chair. Make sure to go to needforseat.com, check it out, and all right, I'm going to leave him here. See you later. Taco, take it away.
Thanks so much, Dave, and thank you so much, Tristan. Although I have to say, in comparison to Jordan's Maxonomic chair form debut, might be a little bit on the 3 out of 10 scale for me, Tristan. I am so sorry, but for the rest of you Smite fans at home, if you want a 10 out of 10 chair, make sure that you pick up one of these Maxonomic chairs. You can head on over and use Smite Max as a discount code and be with the most steady support you could possibly imagine. I mean, didn't you guys see how happy Tristan looked? Not only that, but sorry, I was looking at Gore for a second over here. I completely forgot to let you guys know we don't have aggro with us any longer. It's actually going to be Gore joining me here on the desk for set number 2 of the Jade Dragons versus the Oni Warriors, and this is a pretty big one to close out the day, Gore.
Yeah, I'm actually excited to watch this. This is an important one, really, because the Dragons need a return to form, I guess is the best way to describe it for them. The Warriors, I mean, they're, sitting with the Scarabs' hopes on their shoulders right now, because if they can knock down the Dragons, it opens up some very convoluted map. Hindu has a full whiteboard in the green room right now where he's just been drawing things to figure out all of the numbers, all of the fun. It comes into plus-minuses territory. It gets into really, you have to dive deep into some numbers there, but most of it only matters if the Warriors win.
Yeah, a lot of this is just going to break down to whether or not Oni Warriors can actually find the upset. And if they do, that opens the doorway for that Solar Scarabs versus the Camelot Kings match, because the Scarabs can also find what I think might be considered a little bit of an upset against the Kings.
Definitely.
Then there is a potential for a 3-way tiebreaker between Jade Dragons, Oni Warriors, and Camelot Kings. The reason behind that being that all 3 of those teams have head-to-head records against each other. So if both Jade Dragons and Camelot Kings lose out, that could make things particularly spicy for those playoffs. But more importantly, it's about what happens here today and whether or not Oni Warriors are going to be able to find that matchup against the Jade Dragons. And Jade Dragons, Gore, for what it's worth, they have definitely looked solid this split.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't had, I want to say, as clean a year, at least, well, I should say a clean last couple of weeks that they would have liked, but other than that, they've had a much more stellar. I mean, Mike had started out saying that this was going to be his worst year yet, and yet he still seems to be having just a good enough year
Mike says that all
for
the
them.
time.
Yeah, at this point, every year is going to be continually worse, but no matter what, he seems to keep getting better. The Dragons as a whole seem to be continually getting better. There's a couple of things that it feels like trip them up a little bit, especially like the Scarabs, able to get a big monumental win against them just a few weeks ago. But since then, they haven't really had that same trip up. And while things maybe haven't been as clean as they would like, it's still been victory for him.
I definitely think that a huge driving force behind a lot of the Jade Dragon success has come off the back end of Sam for Soccer. He has looked awesome so far in the Group 1 phase, and even now, I still think that Sam at times, tends to go for a little bit of the more unconventional god choices, but at the same time, he always makes it look good.
Yeah, and this is something that is going to be continually good for them. The fact that Sam, I would argue most of this team, is just so flexible in their god variety that it really opens up a lot of different draft styles, and whether it's meta or not, whatever they want to play is always going to be available for them, and Sam is definitely a big proponent of that. I'd also, because I have him, this is one of the few times some of my numbers actually relate to it. He's 6 kills away from getting his 1500th in his career, and he's 1 win from getting his 200th, so there's a lot he could potentially find in this set.
Well, I'm certain he's definitely going to be looking to try and rack up some kills against the Oni Warriors. What jungler isn't, for that matter? And not only that, but I think Sam as well has just been a really crucial piece for kind of just controlling the flow of the game. And I've definitely noticed that Sam for Soccer, you know, he loves being one of the decisive factors for this team. And we actually have him here for the pregame interview. Sam, first things first, going into this set, what are some of the team's initial thoughts?
I mean, basically we just want to kind of secure first seed, head into the playoffs with a bye. That's kind of our main goal.
And as a jungler, what tends to be a little bit more of your priority throughout each game? Not even necessarily related to the set, but just in general.
I guess the priorities are just make sure all your lanes are like in a good lane state, they can kind of do their own thing, make sure they're not getting like too out pressured by like the enemy jungle or anything like that. I just want to make sure, I guess, especially like Alec and Max, that they can kind of just press their leads and yeah.
What do you think tends to be the most decisive component for the outcome of a set?
The most decisive component? I don't know. Maybe like some mid-game team fights, I guess you could say. Usually, like you can get leads early and stuff, but it'll a lot of times come down to like just a random team fight around gold or something like that, where it just opens up the game.
So you don't ever feel like the pressure is entirely on you, right? At least not with a team like what you're piloting with.
No, I think it's never really on just one single player ever, to be honest. But I mean, I think obviously jungle is very impactful in like getting the game off to a good start. So I mean, it's pretty important.
Well, we're all looking forward to seeing what you guys have for us here today up against the Oni Warriors. So good luck in your set, and thank you so much for joining us for the pregame interview. But Gore, you heard it from Sam. It seems as though confidence is definitely there for the Jade Dragons, and he also seems to understand the fact that it's not just on him. This game comes down to everyone.
Yeah, and I think that's something that is very important, not only for them to recognize coming into this, but also just in general SMITE play. Like, the teams we've seen winning world championships, I mean, PK kind of showed it last year when they win. It doesn't matter if you can have an individual pop-off. If all 5 of you are having a great game, you're going to be able to win. I think that's important against the Warriors because they've been, for a few weeks, riding on Nika's coattails. Like, he would have a really good couple of games, and they would find a flourish with him. But it feels like, as a whole, the entire team has stepped up, and I think it's going to give the Dragons a little more challenge than we would have expected, say, in Week 4 or Week 3.
Yeah, for all of the success that we have seen the Jade Dragons have so far in Split 1 and even throughout this group stage, I got to say, Sam has looked mostly consistent and I think definitely a solid member of his team. But Cubo Fred, on the other hand, I do think that I want to see a little bit more of a step up from him today. He's definitely been a little bit more hit or miss than what I've probably ever seen him in any past seasons.
Yeah, and that's honestly saying something. Like, we were kind of prone to watching him last year. He would very easily and usually have a slow game into a pretty good performance in the late games, but this year it's just been slow games, right? Like, there hasn't been necessarily those big pop-off plays just yet. And so I'm hoping that we get to see that. We've seen glimpses of it. This Gilgamesh as well, like, was looking pretty good for him. I think it fits his style. So maybe the meta's starting to shift to let Cubo really flourish.
And maybe this is a little bit of an overstatement. Personally, I don't think so in the slightest. But Cubo, at one point in time, was regularly regarded in the pro scene as potentially one of the best junglers, if not the best jungler, despite the fact that he's going up against the likes of Adapting in his prime. And I do think that for someone who was once held so highly in that standard, it can for sure be a little bit of a detriment to have experienced as many struggles as what we've seen from the Oni Warriors.
Especially when you think about it, I mean, the man's just got his first world championship, right? Like, you go back, maybe you look at launch tournament, you can talk about that, and like those times, like you said, when he was the best jungler, right? And then slowly through season 1, 2, 3, all of a sudden 4, 5, and 6, and he starts to be on the decline, at least in the sense of where you talk about him in the rankings. But he just won. Like, theoretically should be at the top, but as a reigning world champ, isn't really hitting all the notes we expect to see, especially compared to players like Sam on the other side. The Dragons probably going to give him a lot more trouble this game than he would really like.
Cubo Fred is certainly someone who's going to be looking to try and make some waves here. The World Championship, though, on the line, that's certainly something that he's got trying to line up for the future.
Yeah.
But for the past and what it's worth, I think that he's definitely always felt as though it's just come a little bit shy.
And I'm wondering, and kind of excited again, this last couple of games from the Warriors have been more like a power resurgence from them than it has been anything else. I'm excited to see if they're going to be able to bring the same punch to the Dragons, because the Dragons, especially if they lose a set, the next set is their scariest. But if they get close to losing one, or if they struggle with it, the first 5 minutes of this game could absolutely dictate the entire set if the Dragons just decide to grind them into dust.
The first 5 minutes, you really think it's going to be
they
that
like to
much
win.
of a snowball.
They like to win, and they like to win fast. It might not be the first 5 minutes, might be like 12, 13, but the Dragons, like, if they can get and hit the ground running, they will.
I think for me, the win condition right now for the Jade Dragons is just taking note of those side lanes. The sets where Jade Dragons, or even not even necessarily the sets, but just like the games where either Fine OK or Panda Cat, if either sideline can ever find a solo kill, it just seems like a runaway freight train.
Yeah, it's scary, right? I mean, just to think about it, and not Scary D, he's elsewhere. That's a different conversation to be had. It's just frightening to think about the fact that they can, like you said, take just a small lead and turn it into something so monumental. I mean, we're talking like, hey, he's got 300 gold, maybe more than the other guy, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, so the Dragons have a 5,000 gold lead all of a sudden. Like, it just feels like they create nothing out of something, and the Warriors have had moments like that. But that's where I think a lot of these boundaries need to be broken. When the Scarabs beat the Dragons, the teams that have been able to take them down, they've bested them in neutral objective engagements around those Furies, around those Fire Giants. And it's difficult if you're playing from behind. I think the Scarabs did a great job in their set a few weeks ago because they were winning team fights, then getting objectives. Game 1, they didn't do that part. They lost to the Dragons because of it. I think that's what the Warriors need to look for here.
Well, the Warriors certainly taking note of that mid lane and jungle, not trying to let Hurrywin get an ideal pick between the Tiamat and the Giannis, but can't say I'm very surprised to see either of those got stripped away. The Mercury, however, that just screams to me that the Oni do not want Jade Dragons to be provided with a large amount of mobility, but it does leave open a lot of strong power picks early on. Gilgamesh going to be slipped away by the Jade Dragons early on. Kakolin, King Arthur, still 2 ideal picks up for grabs, and it's going to be the Sobek response. I really like this because it's still very open-ended. Sobek is such a nice open pick.
Yeah, and like, okay, cool. Now we know we're going up against the Sobek. Like, what? That doesn't help anything. Like, you can't really play as much around that as some of the others. It is something that you can plan around a little bit to try and control. Like, oh, now we know we need to dodge Plux, or we know we're going to need to be able to disengage. But you're not really crying about it. And I think Chiron comes through. That's a very power duo lane, and I'm actually really worried. I mean, Panda Cat seemed to be able to hold his own, but last week when he was the Chiron, he was absolutely running the show. Now, how well can he handle it? And he's been loving this Danzaburo, so I'm excited to see it.
I have to say one more time, Danzaburo, because he has looked fantastic on it the whole way through, every single time he's gotten this pick in his hands. And honestly, Gore, that Sobek Chiron seemed a lot more fearsome up until I saw that Amir scoop up.
Yeah.
The Amir seems like it could be a great shutdown factor because it's largely dashes. There is very little leeway here, I think, for Oni Warriors to get caught out. So positioning is definitely going to be key early on.
Yeah, and I'm going to be worried because, again, one missed Sobek pluck. All of a sudden, that's perfect positioning for a Ymir to capitalize on everything. Chiron, hey, your dash, cool, you're immune to knockups now? That's awesome. Can't go through walls. Going to be very dangerous. I think to the point we even saw a Phantom, I think, picked up. Either that was this week, maybe it was the end of last week. Like, one of those rare items that isn't going to come through often, but if these walls are devastating enough, I kind of agree with leaning into it.
And it seems as though Hurrywin was the primary target for the Oni Warriors in those first 3 picks and bans, but 4th and 5th are all about trying to shut out Sam. However, Sam, definitely a talented player, knows his way around the assassin wheel tree, and I'm certain that he's going to be able to make it work. Still a potential. I don't think Daji would necessarily be the immediate go-to because Chiron does have that cleanse, but I do just like the control factor that she could possibly introduce, and it's also kind of interesting to me that Raijin is left open here.
Oh, yeah, I mean, completely. Like, of all the things that they're trying to target and lock down for Hurrywin, like, the things he's been playing, the Raijin, the Soul's still available for him, both that he's been kind of flexing into. I'm sure he's going to be pretty happy. And the same thing, like you said, for Sam. Like, man, Nemesis is gone. Mercury is gone. Pele is gone. Serket's gone, but your Dajis and countless other assassins. I mean, Thanatos, we saw him play yesterday, 2 days ago. He likes going into some of these other picks. So even though you're trying to hammer it home with as much as you can, there's only so much you can do up against the Dragons.
Well, one thing I have noticed, though, is that the Oni Warriors seem to have just eliminated the easier to initiate on assassins. That's one thing that I think Sam does extraordinarily well, especially alongside of Fine OK. Those two are just so great at isolating and separating team fights to find picks on the back end so that they can help with the further and collapse for the core of that team fight, but might be a little bit harder to do against the likes of a Discordia.
Yeah, I really like this draft from the Warriors. Like this, I like all 4 of them. Discordia is maybe the one you could argue against because she's just been kind of coming into it literally this week. Maybe it was a little bit last week, but like nobody's been picking her up super often. Now we're starting to see her more and more, and while we know King Arthur, Chiron, and Sobek are all going to be solid picks, we've seen their performances with the damage output she's going to have that facilitates so much. Then you add Strife and the CC she brings into the mix. The team fight for the Warriors is going to be really deadly.
I'm also thinking about just that passive in general.
Yeah, true.
A little bit of power is always nice, especially when you can apply it to any one of your teammates. So it's a really crazy bounce back, though. The Awelish going to be coming out here for Sam. I love this pickup.
And I really, again, it's something that he has played often enough that it should have been at the forefront of my mind when I started listing off other gods for him, but at the same time, it's something that it's going to be easy for him to play. He knows he can do it well. I don't know how I've seen, or if I've seen, Awelish and Gilgamesh in the same game. I'm not sure the play interaction there with the dropkick.
The dropkick interaction is actually a little bit more difficult to have the follow-up CC because you have to wait until the target actually drops back down fully in order for any damage to be applied. Otherwise, you'll just miss out entirely if you try to get any DPS out during that time period where they're actually stunned against the wall. But the Achilles, King Arthur, and Sobek, that is a pretty potent frontline gore.
That is, I'm very scared of what the Warriors have locked in here. I think that this is, if this is a game they're trying to win, I think this is one of their best bets in terms of draft. They got the execute, but like you said, the front line alongside it is going to be very potent in the terms of the Sobek and the King Arthur. But then you add in all the damage. Like, if you want those executes to be online, Ymir, Gilgamesh, even Danzaburo, Wheelish, Soul, like, they're going to be very easy to get within that threshold, easier for the Achilles to set up. Plus, that's a ton of stuns that's going to be able to come through, make Chiron's life a lot easier. It just feels like it's going to be, if they can get to that point at a level field, a very clean, decisive team fight if the Warriors can just get everything in the right order.
Well, there's definitely some execution that's going to have to come into play here for the Jade
Yeah,
Dragons.
for sure.
But if there's a team that we all know could definitely pull off a strong execution, it would certainly be a roster that is this individually talented. And for what it's worth, this Awelish pick just screams, I'm going to target Dardes, and I'm going to make it impossible for him to have a decent laning phase.
Yeah, I think that it's a pretty easy job right now for Sam. He knows exactly where he wants to go. This Awelish has been pretty successful for him so far this year, and I expect to see him at least be able to match it. Danzaburo, again, has been very potent for them. Soul has been great for Hurry. It feels like everyone started knocking down maybe the top couple of picks that the Dragons have been going to, but they've just filtered in their next tier, and then they'll have another one. I feel like this is going to be something that you have to beat them fundamentally in play.
Well, I'm certainly going to want to keep an eye on that Ymir pick, though, for Polar Bear Mike, because as we discussed, 4 dashes in terms of escapes or initiations, those Ymir walls could definitely be crucial in terms of not only separating, but just peeling team fights and just preventing objective control as well. Liking both of these drafts, though, so far from these two teams, and definitely interested to see what happens in game number 1 of Jade Dragons versus Oni Warriors. Hinyaman, take it away.
So much taco and gore on the desk. Joining me for this one between Dragons and Warriors is going to be Aggro. And Aggro, on the desk, we're talking about it, so let's get straight into it, right?
Yeah.
Gilga drop kick.
I don't know.
Is that a knock-up or a pushback, right?
I don't
Because
know.
I think it's just a straight pushback, like an anti impale, which
feel
means they
like-
don't go up, which means it can't pull, right?
Okay, so I do think that whenever you've got someone in Gilgamesh ult and you hit them and they bounce back,
Yeah.
I think you can Willich pull off,
Off that. Right. Off the ult, right.
I think you'll be able to pull off that.
But off the actual
the
drop kick,
two,
no, I don't think so.
I don't know.
It looks like it goes up a little bit, though. You know what I mean? That's why I'm like,
Well, you're the gambler. You're a betting man. How about I take yes and you take no, and we'll see who's right.
off the drop kick. Sure, deal.
Yeah.
Deal. I think I'm winning that one.
What does the loser have to do? Cast with Mifflin next?
That is a rough one. That's not very nice to anyone involved. Yeah, sure, I'll take that bet.
Deal.
When's he back at next week, isn't he?
Yeah, next week he'll be here.
For playoffs? No, he gets a playoffs game. We're going to cast a playoffs game with him?
That's right.
That's a terrible decision.
Here's the real secret, Chad. I want to cast with Mifflin, so it's a win-win for me either way.
Oh, I thought I was tricking you because I'm okay casting with him too. He's not too bad. He does a lot of the work. Cubo Fred needs a bit of help right now. Gets some from Dardes, but he might not be away in time. That first auto from Horrywin missing actually bought enough time for Cubo to escape. And Dardes going to eat a ton of damage for body blocking an auto there to try and make sure Cubo gets out.
And you know what? There's been a lot of discussion about which starter item is the way to go on Soul. We've seen Conduit Gem, we've seen Gilded Arrow, we've seen Hurlwind pretty consistent with this Sands of Time. That 10% CDR made the difference right there. That Stellar Burst came up right on time and was able to snag that kill.
And with that, we're going to go to a quick pause, as you can see, so we'll find out exactly what's going on there. But early on, first blood straight away, Cubo Fred survives, going through an awkward spot, but then Dart is a casualty instead. Not the way you want things to start.
No, and Solo Will is just so good at fighting early on, especially if Hurwin's doing his job, which is building up that heat on the wave, making sure that his auto attacks are going to deal a ton of damage, which you know Hurry's going to do. Those vines came into play there, didn't they? I mean, Fred takes a little bit of extra time getting there. Dardes ends up stepping up to help and then gets kind of baited himself. So not a great start here for the Warriors.
Not a whole lot to talk about in the game so far, but I will say those vine situations, just go back to that because we've not talked too much about them. Is it worth removing the vines on the enemy side of the map or not? Because I feel like sometimes it's good for engages and getting aggressive, but it's also bad because it gives the jungler better pathways.
Yeah, I think
kind of a gamble.
I don't think that I would for the vast majority of the time. I mean, a lot of times your engage players are going to be ones that have blink or a leap in order to get their engage anyways, and they don't really care about the vine. It's just a matter of if your follow-up damage can go over the wall or if you need LOS, you need line of sight in order to actually get that damage off. In situations where you have something like a soul, maybe you do need to remove that vine, but the vast majority of the time you're kind of using it to block off them getting on top of your backline instead.
Well, I mentioned the ball of their might, this game does have Ymir picked in, and there's not a whole lot of leaps on that squad too, so vines do come into play a little bit now and again in this one. But Horrywin off to a good start in the mid lane with assistance from Sam there, so that's going to get things off and rolling for the Dragons, and they're looking to go undefeated in the group for the most part here, which is back to where they were before the recent events where they started taking a tumble. You know, they started to lose a couple of games against teams you wouldn't have expected.
Yeah, back to form, I think, is the idea here, and Sam is immediately going to set another trap for Fred, who is nearly dead again.
Dennis, don't step up, don't step up. Oh, maybe you do. I mean, he got Hurry kind of low there. Minion Wave was helping out, but Sam also alongside him. And they will survive for now as the level 3s tick away.
But that's horrible for Fred. I mean, he nearly dies, goes back to base, comes back, his mid laner died, comes back to farm up, immediately gets ganked again, and now has to go back to base, loses his back Harpies. Look at Fred's available farm on the map right now. The 2 mini Harpies by Blue. That is it. Otherwise, he's got nowhere to go.
Neil and Mike really scrapping in the lane there as the minion wave will push in favor of the Dragons now. Purple buff pressure available, and red just spawning with the pressure in mid lane that Horrywin's found here. There could be an invade attempt, and you can see how fast Mike's rotating towards the red to get a ward down just to keep vision of that. And maybe if the Warriors transition back towards mid here, Ryan, the purple buff invade could be an option, unless the Warriors recognize that and look to take it now.
Yeah, just not enough resets quite yet for the Dragons, though. I mean, look at what Fred's been able to do. He goes back, buys boots 2.
Yeah.
Dardes has boots 1, of course, coming off that first blood death. Hurwind hadn't gone back to base yet. Sam just now going back to base. It makes sense. The Dragons let the Warriors, and I mean that way, they let the Warriors get their own buffs this time around. I don't think the next respawn's going to be the same.
There was permission granted, is what you're saying there. Speaking of builds as well, you did see Ymir zooming through the jungle. I thought it was a bit quick. Well, that's because he's gone for the full boot start this time round as well. I'm not against this, Ryan, because I know getting, your Hunter level 2 is really important in the first wave. However, you don't necessarily need to go Benevolent straight away at the start and allow your support to still get to the most important level 5. For the most part, to get themselves into the swing of things before picking up Benevolence.
And you just get to save so much gold this way. Mike is able to get a quick reset off, and if you wave manipulate properly, they can't freeze your ADC out of a couple minions. You can't give them the opportunity to do that. Panda Cat did not get frozen out of a couple minions, and it means that Mike is significantly stronger now than Neil is. Full boots versus Benevolence and boots 1 is night and day, let alone their god picks in terms of fighting. Right now, Ymir, of course, going to be stronger because he has that damage output alongside the CC. Neil's doing the right thing, though. He ends up going back to base in time to be able to have his boots done for the invade.
Vote's not doing the right thing, though, and luckily enough, he did have beads available, but burnt early on. Nice little pickup there from the Dragons. Might lower mana now, but they will freeze the wave until Neil does get back from base there. And Neil did start off with that blink, so just keep an eye out on those engages. around the middle area, I'd say, with those blinking gauges, or whether Dragons pressure the jewel in a little bit too hard.
Yeah, I mean, the Dragons have really good ward vision. They know where Fred is on these back rights, and Dardes there as well, but I think they might have mismanaged their mana a little bit. It might stop them from going for this red. Sam had to go back to base because he was completely out of mana. Mike was very low on mana, so he had to go back to base. They aren't there for that red buff quite yet. I think Fred was anticipating that this would get invaded, so he didn't even head over to that side. Instead, he's going to head straight to blue, and indeed that is the plan, especially with the Vote's Purification beads down. I think the Warriors make the right call that they couldn't have gotten that red if the Dragons were there in full force, but unbeknownst to them, they had a window where they could have actually gotten it.
They did, and Neil just going to drop a ward down there and see full vision of this. About looking to invade or defend this, I don't feel too confident with the pressure I see from the Dragons on the left-hand side, and a wall from Mike is just enough to deter it anyway to make sure that doesn't happen. But as you said, you know, Cuvo Fred making the right decision there. He did get the speed buff on this right-hand side too, and the blue buff also still available there.
Yeah, you already dropped that one, I believe, so you get the whole right side jungle by yourself in exchange for Sam sharing 2 of your buffs on the right-hand side. That's a good trade in Fred's mind, just maybe not for the Warriors duo lane.
I guess also with Dardes being slightly behind because of the pressure he got in mid too, him not taking any farm off the mid laner here is still better than sharing it around. Is fine, okay, gets aggressive towards Nika here. Cuvo retreating to his own half of the map now to find out the Dragons aren't done. They realize there's a window to invade the blue and are doing so. They do spot Cuvo there, and Sam's going to knock him up. Beads were consumed on the knockup by Cuvo Fred there to avoid the ultimate that soon followed.
Love the play, though, from the Dragons, because they're ending up with more than what the Warriors did. Yes, we like Fred's play. He makes the right decision, but it's still not the best decision if the Dragons are able to then come in and steal away his whole right side jungle, except for the speed buff, right after the fact. So Fine ends up with an upgraded blue instead of just the regular blue that Nika didn't even go to pick up, so Nika ends up actually without a blue buff at all, and you still get beads out from Fred. Sam puts his ultimate on cooldown on a fairly short CD, so you're feeling good right now if you're the Dragons.
Neilmar going to get stuck in place for a second. Tail whip off the mark, though, and that's going to give Mike a window. But Cuvo there to collapse, and Hurrywin will drop the ultimate to disengage for the time being. Small win there, I'd say, for the Warriors, knowing that Hurrywin's not going to have that ultimate available.
Agreed, but Hurry's not interested in fighting anytime soon anyway,
Someone is.
unlike Panda Cat.
And he's straight in there straight away, but unfortunately he did ring around the roses and the horse stepped forward. Out of danger, Sam for Soccer, a different story. Apple a day will keep him away. Great wall from Mike, though, preventing Cuvo getting involved. Trades out 1-for-1, Hurry for the kill, as Neilmar tried to get the Lurk in the Waters damage off onto Hurrywind, but Hurry standing tall and going to separate the two for the time being. 1-for-1 exchange, junglers both dead in mid, as Neil gets frozen again.
Still has to be careful because Mike has the Sunder up and ready, but Hurry low enough on mana that I suppose it isn't too much of a threat, as Nika gets a successful blue buff invade on this right-hand side, but might have to trade the beads or the ultimate for it. Good choice, that ultimate for King Arthur, of course, very low cooldown.
Final K still going, though, just wants to keep poking him down a little bit further, as they're still both level 8 at the moment, so blowstones from both means minions will still continue to die, and kind of hard to kill King Arthur, but there's a beads forced onto Hurrywing in mid lane, who turns around damage, still stepping up, realizing it takes a while for the Disapparate to go off anyway, so at least gives as good as he gets. Still loses the beads.
Still loses the beads, still hasn't reset. He's probably going to be close to having Spear of the Magus completely done with the rate that he's been out and hasn't gone back to base quite yet. So that's probably why he was a little greedy for that mid wave it was. So that greed cost him.
Nika collapsing in, and Dodd is just off the mark there and now gets wrapped around on by Polar Bear Mike. Apple thrown onto Fine.
Watch
okay.
out.
And the pull in from Doddis is onto Doddis is good, but he still drops down in trade. Mid laner for jungler for the time being. As now Mike under a bit of pressure here, but tanky enough and healthy enough to walk away and take the brunt of the damage. Not a terrible trade if you're the Dragons, though.
No, not too bad. You set Dardes behind, but Sam starts to get a little bit further behind. You want him to be a little bit scarier, particularly because he hasn't got Purification beads. You saw what happened to him on those left side mids. Really easy combo to kill this Awilix. I mean, you just pluck her straight into that golden apple. She's dead because she doesn't have any mobility. Can't get on Suku and jump away whenever she has that long form cripple on her. With Sam not having enough damage to threaten you if he gets plucked in, then you don't have to worry about him quite as much. But he's got a pretty good angle to vote right now.
Well, yeah, Vote's on a bit of a
Nice
rampage
cleanse.
run, but he cleanses himself, but goes the wrong path, I feel, here. Didn't realize Sam was also over here. Lot invested to kill Vote here, but it'll be good enough, and Panda, rocket ship from downtown, will secure the kill. Great work out of the Dragons there on that left-hand side. Just realizing Vote's pathing ended up costing him his life.
And it's all because of this ward vision that they have. They've got the whole enemy side of the map covered.
Fine, still being chased into the tower. They're getting aggressive there against the two. Kivo, 2 tower shots did hurt a little bit more than bargained for on that right-hand side, but they're still going to invade this blue buff. Fine, okay, hanging around to defend, keeping vision of the squad. And Mike thinking about paying a visit now. Kivo is low on mana here too.
Could be a good rotation, but remember, Mike doesn't have
drop
Blink.
kick.
He's got Sunder, and without that drop kick landing, needed to slam the two together in order to get the stun if he wanted to get the kill there. Mike just not quite quick enough on the rotation.
So they do get a blue, but the problem is that right-hand side, Dragons could look to invade again as Oni Warriors blue is respawning right about now. And I don't think you'll see Nika and Kuvo here in time. Only one that could maybe turn up is Neil, but is it worth the risk? By that time, he's probably already dead, at least from our vision.
So funny that these two teams, they both Fine and Nika have gotten 3 blues in a row. It's just been each other's blues in a row. But you see, Fine OK's gigantic solo lane brain is working because the Warriors keep misplaying by getting Scorpions on the right side of the map. So he keeps getting these enhanced blue buffs that the Warriors are working for, and Nika's just getting the regular one.
It definitely feels like a very mental math game for the first 10 minutes so far, because we're talking about minute details of experience gathered from one team over the other. When you've all said and done, you look over it, there's a 2k lead developed for the Jade Dragons so far in this. In terms of experience, well, it's the dual lane. Panda Cat with a 2-level lead. He got left pretty early on from Mike in that lane, and that's given him a chance to just continue to farm, along with the pressure that you've seen on Vote has opened up this window.
And I love the game plan for the Dragons around this Danzaburo. They've really just allowed Panda to just have free reign on this map. Let him dictate his own fights on that left-hand side. And I'm surprised the Warriors haven't done a more concerted effort of trying to get over there and close the gap. Because this Danzaburo, with a lead, feels unstoppable. His all-in is some of the best in the Hunter class. You scale pretty well into the late game. You can be hard to lock down at that point. But he is so easy to gank as long as you have good enough ward vision that he doesn't see you coming. If he starts channeling that rocket, it's so easy to just get in front of him and stop him right in his tracks. And at that point, he's dead. But no blink for Fred means that it's not quite as easy for him to close that gap and stop Panda from getting into that ultimate form.
And you can see just Panda happy to take 1v1 fights, and all the while leaving him on his own on the island on the left-hand side means things develop on the right. Blue buff should be secured for the first time from Dragons in a while here after just getting that Pyromancer too, but Neil's hunting him mid for a second as Mike turns up, but as you can see, Magi's cloak. Neil puts himself in an awkward spot, but Mike's still stepping up, takes a bit of poke from Kubo Fred. Not enough to turn the tail though. Sam now rotating in, and that was a knock-up, remember, from Hurrywin there with that ultimate. If that would have connected, you may have seen Sam throw out that ultimate.
Beads were still just good enough. I think Hurry maybe could have been a slight bit earlier on that ultimate, but I don't know if it would have been enough to kill Fred. I like the idea though from Mike to be aggressive.
And just look at Panda being aggressive too. The wall going to prevent Neil from going anywhere, surrounded by 3. And Panda's rotation with the taunt impacts them again as he stretches and, also I should say, continues his lead of 2 levels. Vote couldn't do anything there. He was trapped under the tier 1 tower with minions.
And you know Panda Cat has that all-in potential. No ward vision right into the jungle from Vote, so he can't blindly walk around that corner.
Kubo's not hit, Neilmar's dead, and so Vote's going to have to step up and try and push them back. He's given a window to get Nika over here, but as you can see, Fine okay. Also in attendance. However, Dragons don't feel as confident as I thought they would with all the members over here. Instead, a couple of quick trips back to base. Looking through who actually went back there, I feel like some of them may have been a bit low on mana to try and take that one down and feel comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, Hurwin doesn't have his ultimate. That's a big fight tool for the Dragons. It's one of their only knock-up enablers for Sam for Soccer, so it makes some sense to me that they want to play that a little bit more slowly, but I kind of agree that overall they likely could have played more aggressively and probably gotten that Gold Fury for themselves.
How you feel on Charon's coin, by the way? We've seen a lot more of it, and it's been built early, which, in one sense, right, it's got stacks, so getting kills and assists, getting it early makes sense. But it does feel a little lackluster when you're going percent pen in the early game, right?
It does. I don't, in a vacuum, if you're asking me about how it is as a second item power spike, it's not great.
Right.
90 power, that's kind of all you're getting. 20% pen in the early game is mostly worthless. However, it's really good at your fourth item. It smooths out your curve. So instead of spiking early, think about the Rod of Tahuti build that was really popular at the beginning of the year.
Right, big power
Took a
spike.
long time, but you had a big spike, and then you were kind of just weaker
Coasting.
throughout the
Yeah.
game. You weren't really getting much stronger than that in relation to the rest of your build. With Charon's coin, you get a much lower spike, but your whole build gets better with each item.
Neil just got caught there and pulled back into the taunt too for extra damage. You can see Sam was hovering around and will blink on in, but Neil did manage in time to get looking at the waters off, but steps back up at the tail end there. I think he was still dead anyway. Cuvo Fred was wrapping around the back for a moment, but realizing there's not a whole lot you can do with Neil dead. But can they defend their red buff? Because Horrywinds recognize this and still got teammates coming through. Early ult from Horry to try and dissuade him, but red buff secured from the Warriors as they turn tail.
Just enough to force back Fred and Dardes. Doesn't get any cooldowns out of them, but buys some space, and that should be enough to get this Gold Fury. Vote still has his ultimate, so he could step up and try and snipe it away.
You gotta be quick though. Not in time, just a little bit too late on that. Didn't have the vision to even know how low it was before he popped the ultimate there. But yeah, back to Charon's coin, I guess. I mean, yeah, early game, it's not as good as you want it, but you do know it's going to be good the longer the game goes on.
It's a lot like anti-heal for penetration. It's
Right.
if you wait too long and you have a fight where it's like, man, I really wish I had more pen, a lot of times that fight's the one that loses you the game. And so by getting it early, you ensure that doesn't really happen to you, and you ensure that you can actually get something like a Soul Reaver in your fourth item slot, or a Rod of Tahuti, these more luxury items that are a little bit more expensive, and you're not costing yourself tank damage. It just smooths out your whole build. So I'm a big fan of Charon's second. Don't think it's a problem at all. Yes, your 2-item power spike isn't quite as good, but unless you're planning on fighting around your second item power spike, and some gods will. Some gods you do want to fight around that second item, so it is more important to get a stronger second option than something like Charon's. For Discordia, in the way the Warriors have been playing, they like to take it more late game. They have not been aggressive early, really, at all this entire year. I think Charon second is the right call for Dardes.
And Dardes also going into Divine Ruin as well for a bit of anti-heal. There's not a whole ton of healers on this team, but with Horrywind in mid lane and that Typhon's Fang, it's going to absolutely help out in these team fights. Nika on the right side though, 3-man gank on the way in, and what can Nika do to escape? Well, everything under his circumstance, he'll just pop the ult, fall back, but look at Panda being over here. Wasn't mentioned, but he takes tier 1 left, rotates all the way to right and goes, you know what, if Vote's not going to fight me anymore and there's nothing to take, I'll come on an adventure because I want to scrap. I'm level 17 at 16 minutes in the game.
Yeah, they should just be fighting around Panda for sure. Who's going to really stop him at this point? Sam's going to try and stop Vote.
Early on, ultimate from Sam there, mainly looking for the extra attack speed that comes with it, and the chase is on, but the problem is Vote did not realize, sorry, I should say Sam didn't realize that Vote had just as much damage in return for him. Sam will survive, and Vote's still pressuring though. That is an interesting fight. Blink is down for Sam, and that tier 1 tower will fall on that left-hand side. Mistake from Sam there, you reckon?
No, I think it's just testing the damage. I didn't see a problem there for Sam mechanically. I don't think that he could have done a whole lot differently. That's kind of a It's a binary gank. I either have the damage to kill him or I don't. And in that instance, Sam didn't. Vote at least uses the ultimate, and Sam just uses Blink ult. That's not too big of a deal either way. So I don't think it's a major problem. You hope that Vote Panic uses a relic where he shouldn't, or gets his dash interrupted by the Feather Step. Maybe Sam could have just held Feather Step until Chiron started to dash, but if you stand there too long trading autos, Vote's likely just going to kill you. So I think that Sam does the right thing.
I was expecting, with how this game's gone as well, and the fact that the early game for the most part left solo laners alone, that we'd see Nika top of the player damage, specifically because of the Discordia passive. However, Dardes has been in action from, well, minute 1 when he tumbled down. You can see with that player damage there, he's going to have his own passive connected to Discordia, so his damage output will be a bit better off. I just don't think they would have necessarily wanted that in the early game.
No, it feels kind of bad when you're like, guys, you got to be doing better than me here. I need this passive on someone else because it's too easy to zone Dardes out of these fights. When we saw the Warriors doing really well yesterday, it was because of that.
All in on Neil, but Neil will at least get the ultimate off. Great wall from Mike after the fact, and Panic credit for the kill. Vote looking for one more snipe there on Sam. Tries to read the option, but can't find it. Instead, invest it into Panda Cat. Meanwhile, on the backside, Final Case rotated in, and the Winds of Samash will take out Dardes and Cuvo. Fred just can't connect there with Sam for soccer. Horrywing can, no one takes out Cuvo, and now it's all starting to go wrong. Only 2 members left of the Warriors on this left-hand side. No minions here, but look at the health bars, not really dropping at all.
No, everyone is still safe and sound. I mean, Fred just has to know that that is never going to work. Sam is always going to be able to feather step that play. It looks really nice and flashy and everything like that, and I suppose it did work out pretty well for Sam, but at the end of the day, I think Fred doesn't give enough respect to the enemy jungler. I think he's got to know that execute's never gone through.
So obviously a bit of a weird situation there with the pause. We'll give you updates as soon as we get them. But yeah, so far, Dragons looking good today. They've looked good for most of the group stages for the most part. I don't think... I think they had to turn it up this week based off how they did just at the tail end of the first phase.
Well, they still went 2-1 in both of their first 2 sets in this group, so it's not like they've been as dominant as they were at the very beginning of the year. But let's be real, we knew that they weren't going to be able to maintain the pace that they had at the very beginning of Phase 1. I think the Dragons are doing what I expected them to do coming into this group phase. They've looked like the best team in their group for sure, maybe dropped some things, maybe had some miscues, but have really been in control the vast majority of the time.
Well, back in game again for this time round, as you see the buff going the way of Hurrywin there for the enhanced red buff that we're seeing a bit more of these days. Fire Giant is available, and I expect Dragons to turn their attention in that direction now, mainly because, well, they're going to continue farming the Warriors here. They're still too far behind at this moment in time. 3 levels behind at the moment for Vote in that duo lane. As the Fury's about to spawn on this left-hand side, and you can see the Warriors just trying to get the Oracles or as much farm as they can at the moment. Do you look to scrap around FG if you're Dragons? And do you defend if you're the Warriors, I guess?
No, I think it's if you defend if you're the Warriors. I mean, you look at the Relic situation right now for Dardes, he can't play up in these team fights whatsoever. So I just don't think that you can really afford to step up in these fights. I mean, this is what the Dragons should be able to do. You've got Oracle vision. You know that they've got it going on, and you can't stop it. And the Dragons know it. They make the right decision. They don't have to waste their time thinking about what the Warriors are going to do. They should just decide what they want to do and then go and do it.
Apologies for the lack of audio at the moment. We'll get it back as soon as you can, but trust me, I struggle a lot harder by just visual. I live in the audio world.
Well, Graham, you and I have casted where we've lost audio, lost video.
Don't tell them that.
And done just audio before. Surely video without audio is
once
better.
casted a fight where I hear a tail whip and a frost breath, and someone just used beads, and that's a great fight. And speaking of beads, Neil needs it right about now. Look at the water's used again. But once again, this wall came into play where Mike is just picking apart Sobek. That is trying to be the front line they need. The problem is that he's just got no support network, and the wall is preventing anything.
Yeah, this Ymir pick has been solid. I think that they just came in with the game plan that we're not going to let the Warriors have that primary engage tool of this Sobek.
This is a bit of a weird fight. Fire Giant dropping low, and Dragon's still working away on it and will secure it for themselves. But what about the follow-up? Well, here comes Rocket Man himself, Pandika. Looking at Cubo Fred, who immunes it thanks to his ultimate, but still trying to run away. Can might get a wall off to prevent anything. Sam looked for a bit of a play there with a knock-up, didn't find it, but the Frost Breath will catch Nika's beads. Dora's still alive, though, had to use an Aegis and will fall down to Panda, who continues to chase on him without diving in deep. Still Nika alive, still Vote alive. But the damage has been done. All 5 members of Dragon still alive. However, who's around the back? Who's that? It's Cubo Fred going in. He's looking at Mike, but he misses it again. However, Mike also missed a stun. And now Nika and Vote coming in looking to pick up Mike, at least as a casualty there. So Jungler for support. Meanwhile, Vote on the backside tried to join the rest of his team that was diving in for the Ymir. And instead, he ends up falling. This exposes right-hand side Phoenix. And that's going to fall down.
And this is an Oni wave. I think they might be able to just end off this Hindu.
Will they go into the fountain room is the question. Middle tier 2 tower will fall too. And it looks like Dragons have accepted. They'll go for mid lane instead here. There is a full minion wave alongside them, right? So this is looking pretty simple, especially with the respawn timers.
Yeah, I think that there's a chance the Dragons could have ended, but they get almost all 3 Phoenixes here. I don't think they'll get left side, but they get mid and right. That's essentially ending the game.
Not a whole lot Nika can do here. Apple does hit onto Pandaka of all people, but he'll get away for now. Nika's thinking about giving chase, but there's no one really as an opportune target at the moment. Dragons do their due diligence, fall back, even though health bars are solid, to make sure they strip away some jungle. And they've extended their gold lead now to 14,000. I didn't realize it was that much.
It's been rough for the Oni Warriors, and it has been for a lot of the year. I think that's why everyone was so excited when the Warriors started to look really good against the Titans yesterday. That's just a Warriors team we really haven't seen all season, and it's really just this – I think it's their lack of pace to me, Graham, that I just don't – I don't like the way that they've really just tried to hang on in early games and wait until the late game, and then we'll get then we'll start to play well. Then we can group up and team fight. And it's just not only is that not proven super fruitful for them, but I just don't understand why you need to be waiting until late game. I mean, this draft for the Warriors isn't great at fighting in the 3v3, but this, obviously they can pick different things. It's just that the Warriors have not shown any aggressiveness. And to me, they just haven't shown any confidence in these 3v3 fights or in any fights, really, for the most part. I think that's really what they're lacking more than anything else, and understanding their situation, everything like that, but they just lack confidence to me.
And the one thing I'm looking at mainly is the Cuvo Fred jungle picks. It's not to pick on Cuvo specific because it's a draft overall.
Yeah.
But they aren't putting a lot of pressure in the jungle. They're looking for more mid to late game cards every
well,
single
it's
time.
not only that, it's the builds that he's gone for. I mean, he's gone attack speed boots Circuit the last 2 times he's played her. He went attack speed boots Stone Cutting Sword Achilles in this game, then Pridwin, then no other prots. I just don't think Fred's been playing his best Smite all year.
Mike stepping in, looking for a Frost, doesn't find it. Meanwhile, though, you can just see the pressure coming out from Nika going into the backline for a second or two, if possible, just to try and separate him. I should have said Neil, but fine, okay, still in there with the Winter Smash, causing problems for Vote, who's very, very low on the backside. Sam gets credit for that kill as the pressure on Panda Cat is still there from Nika, but slowly but surely he's whittled down by the 2 carries of the Dragons, and the left-hand Phoenix ends up falling down too. Continuing into the throne room we go now. And with that, that's going to be the end of Game 1, with the Dragons doing a fantastic job of cleaning us out in, well, under 25 minutes.
Yeah, they made that one look really easy. And as soon as they got that first blood for Whirlwind, he was able to just get in there and step up and really keep that pressure going in mid. Sam was consistently in every single lane, and Panza burrowed all over Vote. So you just didn't have a real option there for the Warriors, it felt like.
So what do you think we do for Game 2 then if you're Warriors? Is it look for an early game draft and try something different here? Or we saw him yesterday do very well. We just got to go back to basics?
Yeah, I think going back to basics, I don't like the Achilles pick overall right now. I think the Discordia can work, but clearly the Sobek is a little bit overvalued, and they're coming in with a game plan. If you're going Sobek, I think you have to take the Ymir out of Mike's hands. That's just too good of a matchup for Ymir.
Well, that's it for Game 1. Can Dragons close this out very quick today, or are Warriors going to bounce back? We'll find out after the break.
Hey there, Smite fans, Aggro here. Look, every single year, the SPL just keeps getting better. Season 7 was incredible, and in Season 8, I'm sure our players are going to take their game to the next level. But in order to do that, they're going to need the best gear they can get their hands on. And that's why I'm so excited to announce the title sponsor for Season 8 of the SPL is Alienware. Yeah, that Alienware. Our players are getting the best of the best in computer gaming. These Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition PC setups are insane. Not only will these be the PCs that the players will compete on once we are in studio, but Alienware is also providing one for each player at their home setup to make sure their practice is as good as possible. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The specs on these Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition desktops are amazing. An AMD Ryzen 9 16-core processor.
That's a lot of cores.
That's plenty of processing power.
Plenty of cores.
If you want to stream, this is the way to go.
I know a lot about my cores, so. I mean, Pilates, right?
64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM.
What? Is that true?
That is true. I mean, this thing has 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM.
Which you can do literally anything with.
Literally anything.
I've never had more than 16 gigs.
That's quadruple the amount I have at home.
And one of the hottest commodities in the PC world, an NVIDIA GeForce 3090 graphics card.
Insane how much better this is than what I have.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course.
Content's gonna look good.
And what's the point of all the power if you can't see it? Players will also be using the Alienware 25-inch 240 Hz monitors.
Man, when I load into scrims with this bad boy, I'm gonna feed so hard. And it's gonna be in perfect picture quality.
We are so excited to be partnering with Alienware for Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League. And the best part is, this VIP treatment, it's not just for the pros. You too can get the best possible SMITE experience. Just go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get special discounts on some of Alienware's best products. Thanks again to Alienware. Make sure you're following them on Twitter and Instagram. That's at Alienware on both platforms. And you can join their community at alienwarearena.com.
And you're telling me an alien wore this?
Welcome back to the SMITE Pro League, powered by Alienware. And not only that, but for the Jade Dragons, they weren't just, there was no feeding involved, actually. It was solely feasting on the likes of the Oni Warriors here. A lot of that largely due to the fact that those Alienware PCs have never looked better. And if you want to be able to copy yourself your very own Alienware PC, get your hands on one of those 390 graphics cards, go ahead and check out smitegame.com/Alienware and make sure to use promo code SMITEAW so that you too can be gaming like the pros. But I don't know if any of us are really capable of making it look as simple in our games as what the Jade Dragons just did in game number 1 here, Gore, up against the Oni Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, being able to come through. Now that you've said it, I kind of want to get like CGI versions of the mascots, but like fighting each other, because like kind of makes sense that a dragon would feast on a warrior, right? I want to see how those all shake out. Maybe that would determine the Ultimate World Championship this year. We have no idea. But like the picks they have, I don't know where to start with this team. Like, Soul looked really good, but Soul looked good because Ymir's walls. Ymir looked really solid, but so did the Danza Burr. Like, so many aspects of this looked incredibly solid. And I think Heroin kind of helped kick things off there in the mid lane. A lot of good early game kills, first blood even at that. The aggression that this Soul has brought, it kind of showcases that, yeah, you can ban his Yanis, you can ban his Tiamat. He's got at least 2 other gods he can go to afterwards, so people are going to have to figure out how to deal with this.
And this is sort of what we were talking about before we entered game 1 on the desk. It's just that the Jade Dragons, they are a team that loves to strike early and they love to strike hard. And once you get jammed, it's very difficult to bring things back up to scale. Oni Warriors just never really had that point to look for a recovery. And again, Gore, you already mentioned it, but this Ymir for Mike was just so controlling almost every single step of the way.
Yeah, I think it was like 1-1 and 10, maybe it was 1-1 and 11 towards the end of this, but I mean, like, he had so many assists that weren't even necessarily, like, him maybe freezing anybody, it wasn't always the carpet, it was just blocking people off. That wall came in so many times. and caused a lot of trouble for the Warriors. And it really helped them out because they were almost always retreating. It makes it a lot easier as Ymir to throw them behind them and make them stop, as opposed to trying to block them away from any sort of aggression. So I think PBM just got to kind of run whatever he wanted to.
The communication just seemed very in sync across the board here for the Jade Dragons, specifically taking note, I think, of some of those rotations out of Panda Cat even. You know it's not going to be a good day for the Oni Warriors when Panda Cat is just strolling along into the Oni Warriors red buff territory and just making it absolutely impossible, I think, for Vote to ever look for any sort of survivability aspects either. Danzabar probably one of the better hunters at just keeping up with that giddy-up escape.
I mean, there's just so many things that the Dragons did right. And this Danzaburrow, like, the first time we saw it, Chiron was banned out, and I went back to look, at least for this week, if this was something that Panda Cat's been doing against the Chiron specifically, and he's been doing it more as a trend, but he also just kind of wanted to play him, it seems like, and it feels like it's been looking good for him after... I think once he was played in Phase 1, Zapman played him like Week 1 or Week 2. Nobody was touching this god, but Panda Cat's made him seem like a big threat.
Still don't think that Danzaburrow would necessarily be regarded as, you know, the S-tier threshold.
Yeah.
But when somebody like Panda Cat is piloting him, it starts to make you wonder if there might be a little bit more than meets the eye.
That feels like it translates as a, so guys, don't lock this in my ranked games. But if you're Panda Cat...
If your name is Panda Cat exclusively, you can do whatever you want. He could lock in Almuz and Cobb and probably make it look fantastic. But
get to lock him off my list.
That is just the benefit, I think, of this Jade Dragons roster. There is a ton of individual talent, and these drafts just seem incredibly well thought out. I'm mostly noticing just like one or two pivotal pieces. The Ymir for me was a huge one for this Jade Dragons. I'm a little skeptical to believe that Oni Warriors would want to let that one slip through.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to figure out a little more about their bans. Last time it was Yanis, Mercury, Tiamat. All three of those feel pretty good. I guess you are able to swap it up since their first pick now. They can let one through, maybe the Giannis, maybe the Tiamat. I don't know about Cuvo's Mercury.
I think for me, what kind of transition I would like to see here for the Oni Warriors is they spend a lot of time looking for individual picks against players, but I think they should be prioritizing picks that are going to shut down favorable drafts for the Jade Dragons, because at the end of the day, Jade Dragons, it's 5 of some of the best players for each of their respective roles, and when you're dealing with that sort of skill set on all 5 members, it becomes a little bit better in my mind to just focus on preventing the Jade Dragons from finding their comfort picks for their team comps. And I'm not saying that the Giannis isn't a comfort pick or the Mercury isn't a comfort pick, but the Ymir specifically, it's those control aspects that the Jade Dragons are looking for early on.
And I think this is a good start. Again, that was the Tiamat last time around. It forces the Dragons to decide, do they want to play with her, which they did just lose to Tiamat minions last week, so that probably has a fresh cut in them and maybe some salt in the wound if the Warriors lock that in. But it also gives them something to play with if you're the Warriors here, because no matter what the Dragons ban, theoretically something is going to be available for you. But like you said, like even Aggro had highlighted it in the cast where it's just the Warriors didn't feel aggressive. They never were really the ones dictating when a fight would happen. They were always just kind of responding to the Dragons.
A little disjointed.
And it feels like that's like, you know, look for your 3v3, look for something that works, like you said, as a unit. Don't just get, hey, this would be really good at getting a single kill. It's like, no, we need a team here, not just individual power plays.
Well, it seems as though Oni Warriors are taking note of that already, Gore, with that Gilgamesh lock-in. Certainly going to have some impact in terms of those jungle fights where we saw the Oni Warriors kind of struggling in Game 1. But Fafnir still open for the Jade Dragons. It's something that Polar Bear Mike has been leaning to pretty heavily in past sets, and not only that, Tiamat up for grabs for the first time in a while here for a hurry win. I'm sure he's not going to ever be upset about snagging a Tiamat.
Not at all. I don't think they've been able to grab her too often, and I can glance. I think it's literally only been once.
Set,
yeah, they played her once. They won with her once, I believe. So it's just one of those things where it's like, is this worth letting him have? He looked really good on a Tiamat, so maybe you've made a slip up here. That might be a little troublesome, but you don't have to deal with the soul now, so, the scales.
Well, Hurrywin did lose the most recent Tiamat game that he had with the Jade Dragons, but that for me was a little bit more based around just like the team fight overall. It just took a little bit too long for the Tiamat to really be able to ramp up because so much pressure was just leaking elsewhere. But with the Chiron in the side lane, you have to imagine that's going to be a decent amount of 1v1 potential up against Vote. The Kukulin Yamoja snacks, though, this is a solidified front line already from the Oni Warriors gore, and it definitely introduces that control aspect I was looking for.
This is 5 really strong picks in this game already, and with Fafnir, it just makes it 6. But I think I agree with you. Like, I'm looking at the Warriors, and I don't know if I care what you lock in beside that. Granted, I mean, there's, like, caveats. Like, Zhang Kui's been losing a lot of games. Please don't do it. But, like, things like that, Yamoja, Kukulin, and Gilgamesh, as you had highlighted, are just such a powerful trio to really just be an entourage and hang out. Like, they're going to run this game if they can get to the point. Theoretically, Gilgamesh, I'm guessing at this point, more likely into the jungle with Yamoja beside him. Any mid laner that's going alongside that has so much set up in the world that their job should be very easy from that point forward. You just have to deal damage. You don't have to worry too much about it. Everybody around you is just trying to filter success into you.
I'm hoping that we see Dardes not opt for the Discordia this game, though, because I do feel as though he would definitely encounter a lot of problems up against that Fafnir. Fafnir being able to go into that Dragon transformation, just so good at harassing carries and just consistently staying on top of them. Even though Yamoja can provide some decent peel, at the same time, I definitely feel as though Fafnir just has a slight edge in terms of what he can provide during the objective play.
Yeah, that's where things really, like, Yamoja, like you said, hey, I can throw up River's Rebuke, and theoretically you can't jump into the walls anymore. You can't get into the Fire Giant without it being risky. Fafnir just says, cool, we're going to kill it. Have fun jumping in here. Like, either we kill, let's say, a Fire Giant or a Fury fast, or we just kill your team fast. It doesn't necessarily matter to us which one jumps in. With Chiron, that combo, that's just been too potent.
And Dardes isn't even going to get the chance to try and run back that Discordia. It's actually going to be taken away by the Jade Dragon, so they're really just trying to make him die deep. There is the potential, I feel like, for a Kukulkan maybe from Dardes. It's been a while since we've seen that god show its face, but have to remember some of the things that Big Man Tings was able to accomplish earlier on. I do feel as though it might be decent, at least for the self-peel, and just having some safe space distance, and mostly just looking at the objective contention. I want to see a big burst ultimate for the Oni Warriors. I'm concerned that if they elect to go for a Raijin here, Dardes is just not going to really have too many opportunities to stay alive. You would imagine with the Gilgamesh, Kukulin, and Yamoja it might be easier, but Fafnir, Tsukiyumi now, there is so much dive already from the Jade Dragons comp.
I don't believe what I'm seeing with my eyes, so I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about the things that are there,
you
the things that are sure.
With Pandagat, and he's like, hey, anything he can do, I can do better.
Well, I'm yet to be seen, but he's not going to be able to come through with it. I'm actually surprised. I don't know if you saw, I had to do a double take because I was like, yeah, I see a King Arthur ban, but like, he was the last ban in the game. It's not something I expected to see so far down there, but it kind of makes sense again with the rest of the draft. Now it's all up to the Dragons to figure out what they want over there, but again, Fino-K seems pretty comfy. He might even be the Tsukiyomi.
It's starting to look as though Fino-K might be looking for a slightly more aggressive option with the Tsukiyumi, a fairly common assassin being flexed into that solo lane role. And again, this is largely just for the dive aspect in my mind. And this Mulan, that's got to be Sam for soccer all day long. No doubt in my mind about it. It's a pick that he's been probably wanting to showcase for weeks now.
And this is, I mean, when she was released last year and she became available, people played her a little bit. Like we saw, I think Wrong Yu made her look good in support. Like that's where we saw her find more success in solo lane. And she's so interesting to watch, but nobody's touched her, at least competitively this year. Maybe coming in with the ranked game, seeing what she can do. I'm excited to watch this matchup, specifically versus Kukulin, because right now it's been him and King Arthur dominating. If Fino-K can have a great performance on a Mulan, that could be a very easy pathway for her success.
And I do want to make a small side note. If this ends up being Fino-K Mulan, I will have been severely trolled by Jade Dragon, and I will no longer believe anything Kabam says. I'll say it that way. But Tsukiyumi in that solo lane position, again, my concern for this Morrigan now for Dardes is I was hoping for the big burst for an objective play, because how do you deal with the objective shred that Jade Dragons have introduced with this roster.
Pray and hope that you're there. Like Apollo, like theoretically, I guess you could, again, River's Rebuke, you have 2 big walls, Gilgamesh can jump in, drop his ult, like you have a lot to create it and make it just a hellscape for the Dragons, but nothing to steal or secure, right? You can just bet or hedge your bets that the fight will become so chaotic that maybe you can lock it down, but it's risky at best for the Warriors there, so I think at this point, it's just hoping they get a good grip on the early game. Don't let the Dragons run away with it the way they did last time and try to drift into a more even mid-game, late game so they can actually contend those objectives.
I also really want to keep an eye on Vote with this Apollo because having the global introduction could make things a little bit more difficult for the Jade Dragons if they are looking to just swarm the Oni Warriors for that early game suppression. Maybe trying to sit on top of the Morgan isn't going to go as smoothly, or even if Jade Dragons are just looking for that early invade buff control, they might encounter some more difficulties if Apollo is able to get to the fight before the Chiron.
And we already saw it a little bit earlier, but the Apollo has that capability to just be anywhere on the map that he wants, then ult in, so it's going to cause some chaos.
Should be a fun one to check it out for game number 2, and Hindeman, you already know what to do.
Yeah, talk about where the pressure is in the game, I guess, is the starting point for the Oni Warriors, because that's kind of where we left off game 1 here, Ryan. And looking at it, I guess Nika's the one with pressure?
Yeah, Nika should have pressure, and I actually like their mid 3v3 maybe more than I like the Jade Dragons 3v3. I just don't think Tiamat is really good in those moments. She's great late game. She's great when you get to 4 or 5 items and start to do a lot in these team fights when you can put pressure on side lanes with your minions. But in the early stages, Tiamat doesn't really blow me away. So I'm looking for the Warriors to be more aggressive around mid than they were in game 1.
Not often we see Tiamats in the game, though, as of late. We saw Big Man Tings have a fantastic spell on it. I think he was the best performing one so far. I'm not going to say he's the best player of it, but definitely the best performing so far we've seen in Pro League play. So we do know that Tiamat can bring a lot to these engagements if you're willing to go in with your team.
Yeah, you have to be willing to go in. That's the big difference with Tiamat in comparison to a lot of other mages. You have to play her more like Zhang Kui or a Hades who's willing to get their hands a little bit dirty. And I will say that I think that's Hurwin's maybe greatest strength as a player, is that he is willing to die for the team. He's willing to dive bomb him, get his damage off, and have his KD not look particularly good afterwards. So I think that this is a really good match for his playstyle.
We'll check in with the duo lane real quick. It did look like the Oni Warriors did get a bit of pressure there. I wasn't sure that would go that way, though. I think it was a 50-50 for my liking with how Chiron's been as of late in that early game. But the Apollo Emoja seems to have neutralized it this game, at least.
Not too surprising based on the fact that Mike saved his Hand of the Gods, but Fred in some trouble. Good pathing, though, is able to get him out of some danger.
And a good way from Dardis to support, but he's going to eat a ton of poke from Sam there and have to beat again. Once again, the duo lane out of the Warriors struggling. Sorry, I say the duo lane. The mid lane jungle combination out of the Warriors struggling a little bit in the early game. We're seeing Dardis have to eat more damage than necessarily intended sometimes, and they're also losing camps.
Have to. When you have that much wave pressure, it's just too difficult to step up and be able to contest. And in fact, Fred just had to blink away from Sam, and Sam gets both of his back camps on that side of the map. So not only does it set Fred behind, but it ends up setting Dardez behind, because instead of soloing back left by himself like he normally would, he has to share them with Fred.
Small minutiae there, but if you watched on the minimap, you could see Fine OK had transitioned from the lane when there were still minions there into the jungle, just in case Sam got himself caught in a tricky spot. He was having backup available. It's those small things when you're playing as a team. Your teammates clearly know what you're up to, where you're going, and they can try and be there to assist.
Now, with this lead that Sam has started to grow, I feel like this Mulan is going to cause a lot of problems for Dardez. This is a pick that Sam absolutely loves, and it destroys mages. Like, it is so difficult to get your damage off before she can kill you. It's hard to get away from her because of her mobility between the 3 and the ultimate, and her damage is quick.
Is it the cross strike that's really the Punisher, or
no,
is it more the spear?
It's the spear because it's a heavy slow. It does a lot of damage. It's really that they both just come out very quickly, and you can just apply a lot of damage up front. So I'd expect Dardez to be in a lot of trouble from Sam, because Morgan transformation takes a little bit of time to get off, and Sam might not interrupt that changeling with the 3. He might just be blink 3ing to pull you close, and then he's going to kill Dardez before he gets any meaningful buttons off. There isn't a Nike to transform into, or a Terra, or something super tanky. It's likely going to be this Gilgamesh. I would anticipate being his most common transformation. And I don't know if he can really jump away in time with how fast Sam's damage is going to come out.
I think the one thing about Morrigan coming in and out of competitive play consistently for my liking is how effective her stealth can be and how useful you can make that work. Well, Bluestone's in the meta, and if Hunters are building it as well as these solo laners, there's more things able to strip you out of that stealth and not allow you to make it useful. Could be a thing to watch out for.
Certainly an annoying item to deal with when you're playing a stealth character, and Morrigan definitely doesn't like it. Plus, Tsukiyomi caltrops, those are difficult to avoid sometimes in team fights. You can really use those really well to just cut off a potential flank route whenever you're starting to group around objectives. You're going to hear that Morrigan stealth. Don't know exactly where she's coming from, but let's just turn around and throw down the caltrops, and then I've got an extra area where I know she can't come from.
And on top of that, you still got a Fafnir's ultimate that can do a nice bit of AoE burst for no real issue, no real cost to the enemy team too. So just keep an eye on how Dardas can make this work this game. 3v3 in mid lane is starting to group up, at least for the side of the Warriors, as Mike is in mid. I don't think he realizes there was 3 here as he threw that hammer in, but he's just been a nuisance wherever possible as best he can. Throws out the hammer for the extra player damage, and meanwhile everyone else just continue to farm up. No surprises, Ryan. If we don't see Jade Dragons get a kill in the early game, it's pretty much a farmer farm with the Warriors.
Should be pretty easy to defend your buffs with this composition in comparison to what the Warriors had last time. So I like the adjustments that they've made. I like Neil on the Emoja more than I liked him on the Sobek. You have a lot more options, and in fact, they feel confident enough to maybe even go for an invade themselves.
Yeah, 3v2 on this left-hand side as Mike steps up for a second, but it's on the right-hand side that Sam has found a bit of a window on Nika, preventing him from trying to get towards this blue buff and keeping him very far back. It's allowing Fine to pressure this wave too. All the while, left-hand side, the purple buff is invaded and stolen away by the Warriors, and no casualties on the side of the Dragons.
Still, Fred being much more active early on, I think, is a good thing for the Warriors. Yes, Nika's going to fall a little bit behind because of it, but Nika's been the lone bright moment, I think, for this Oni Warriors team for much of this year. Vote had his time as well, but has been focused.
Drop kick into the wall for Sam, and there's no escape available. We'll use the ultimate to give him some distance, but no beads means no real chance of survival there. Dardas credit with a kill, exactly where you want it to go.
That's a fun little combo right there. Drop kick into drop kick, just tons of CC that it's pretty difficult to get away from. And Sam is going to look to play aggressively on this Mulan. You are not picking Mulan to farm to level 20. That's not the game plan. You have to get involved a little bit early on. But I'm a little surprised that he's looking in the jungle. I think his best opportunities are in lane, and that's specifically in mid.
Funny enough, I'm just thinking about the fact I've not seen a video yet in an arena game or something of double Windsor smash into double drop kicks, which would be very funny and could actually happen in this game.
Yeah, that would be fun. You just get to, I mean, they're the guys who do all the crazy arena content. I'm sure they're on it.
I hope so. I hope we'll see a video soon enough. At the moment, though, Oni Warriors pinned back on this left-hand side as Panda Cat is level 7, matching that of Vote so far in the lane. Death's Toll for Vote start here, Bluestone for Panda, and that's really the difference, I would say, between these two styles of Hunters.
Sorry, I was just thinking about drop kicking. What is the best arena composition to mess around with drop kick? And I'm thinking it might be drop kick, Sylvanas pull, Heim ult, Naja ult for the kill. That's where I'm at.
Well, maybe you just play the game of drop kick. I mean, we're discussing drop kick being used, so we could just get double Sobex or something, right? Because I'm just thinking fling them into the fountain.
True,
right?
yeah.
Fling them all the way
Well, no,
back.
that's where you should have the Sylvanas in the fountain to pull him through the wall.
That's
at the
true.
very end.
That's
I think
true.
that's probably your best bet.
After the Sobek alley-oop. That's what I'd like to see, right? Just on landing. That's the dream.
Sobek into Heim into Sylvanas pull. And then, as all that's happening, the other 4 members of your team have all based, and then they're crowded around the Sylvanas in the fountain, waiting for the pull.
This is why casters don't do balance, by the way, because we come up with crazy ideas like that. Well, I was thinking about this as well, right? What about if you could drop kick deployables? Hang on a second. Fine, okay, under a lot of pressure here. Woo. And I'm surprised Nika didn't continue the chase. I think he's worried about a rotation coming in there. Didn't really have much to follow up with, though, as he used most of his kit.
He's got blink.
Although he could look up for the kill here, and there's no real people rotating in sight because they were trying to pitch Cuvo Fred in the jungle. Fine, okay, he's getting pressured back out thanks to Nika. Nats now making Sam come over here, and Nika's in trouble now.
Yeah, he's in a lot of trouble. Directly into the pull. Nika doesn't have the transform.
I don't know, dude.
And that just feels like Nika's trying to force it. That he knows that his team has been struggling, that maybe getting a solo kill on Fine is the morale boost they need.
Like this play, look at a Hurrywin in the mid lane who leaps away, but Neilmo's there too with the walls trapped inside him as Dardas is still in there trying to get a kill. Hurrywin will finally go down to Dardas, but can Dardas get away is the question, because Mike's still looking for it. Won't read the hammer throw through the stealth. A good pick for the Oni Warriors there, especially after Nika. But look at Sam in the jungle now looking for the spear, won't find it. In the end, it causes Cuvo to blink away.
Really close. Good blink from Cuvo, because if that grapple had landed, I don't think he lives. Sam still had the ultimate at that point, so he was going to be able to chase him down.
Which blade start? The Tsukiyomi. I do, you know, we used to see some different variations in the solo lane, but mainly you'll look for something with, well, let's say, more overall stats. This isn't a bad item by far, you know, it's got physical protections, reduces attack speed and stuff like that, but is it really worth the first time slot?
I'm a little surprised by it as well. Normally I would say no, but when you think about how these fights are going to play out for the Oni Warriors, it's Cuvo jumping in, it's Nika jumping in, it's Vote diving in, and it's Dardes transforming into the Gilgamesh or the Tsukiyomi most likely. Those are his two best options in my mind. Maybe the Chiron if they need the long-range damage. And with that, they don't have a lot of magic damage to be worrying about. This is pretty common against Morrigan compositions where you don't really respect the base form Morrigan. You're really playing for her transform.
Which we've seen Gilgamesh so far.
And Gilgamesh has been the one so far, and that's probably going to continue. Tsukiyomi becomes a pretty good one later on as well. But overall, I'd anticipate that Dardes is going to be transforming into a physical more often than not.
True.
And Final K gets a cheap physical option in order to let his dive be a little bit more effective.
Yeah, I just wonder how effective it would be transforming into Tiamat for the most part. I mean, she doesn't require a lot of setup, you know. She's got a whole kit available, but you have to dump it in one rotation, and Dardes under pressure in mid lane here. Does start onto Sam, but Sam's still got some follow-up available. Cancels his ult early there. I think he could have maybe continued the pressure, but instead, they'll fall back happy to get the beads out of Dardes for now before Neil can arrive. Neil trying to close the gap here, but I know Mike's still got his leap available if needed to get away. Meanwhile, fine, okay, on this right-hand side, keeping Nika busy for a second on his rotation and forcing the ultimate too.
The big thing the Warriors are going to have to contest with as this game goes on is that they have very low range in comparison to the Jade Dragons. And that doesn't affect you too much at this point in the game. The good flank there from Fred, lets him sneak up on Heroin, gets his beads, good damage. Dardes has been able to sneak into the backline using that stealth, get off his damage. You look at the Jade Dragons, they've got Tsukiyomi, the best range in the assassin class. You've got Tiamat, who has very good poke. You've got Chiron, who has very good poke for a hunter. All of these things are going to be pretty difficult, and that's why Neil's Yamoja is going to have to be critical. He's going to have to expend a lot of Omi come late game, likely on just using that Mending Waters to keep the team up, and the Warriors are going to have to find a way to close that gap effectively.
We're talking about closing the gap. Nika needs to do that in terms of experience now, as Final K has just managed to stretch this lead to 2 levels over on that right-hand side, I should say. Goal differential as well at the moment is only 1,000 in favor of Dragons, as the Scorpion on this left-hand side being looked at by the Warriors. Panda Cat's on the scene to try and slow him down, and Panda uses the ultimate there just to make sure he doesn't get hit by the Riptide, holds onto his beads too.
And he stole away the Scorpion all in the same motion, so that ends up working out pretty well.
Is the Scorpion even worth that much? I mean, to be fair, anything in terms of neutral camp is important, right?
Yeah.
But is it that important?
No, I mean, the Warriors aren't like, man, we're screwed now. Like,
but
we
no
lost.
enhanced buffs, dude.
Yeah, you get the enhanced buffs, and it matters. It lets him box pretty well, but does it let that extra attack speed on purple buff? Would he rather have that or his ultimate when it comes to boxing? Probably the ult.
Great little workout of Mike there as well. Just listen to the audio cues from Morrigan, hearing that stun was available and coming through. Leaps away just before he can close the gap, and still terrorizing the front line, putting himself in awkward spots and then leaping away. I mean, we've seen similar things out of Ratha, but both of them tend to do this sometimes, and it can get them picked if they don't realize that they are all alone.
Towing the line, I would say.
That's
what they like to do on these types of picks. And there's a reason that they both play a lot of Fafnir, because he does it probably better than any other Guardian. I think that he is likely the hardest Guardian to kill, except for maybe Xingchen or Sobek. Those are the only other two that come to mind that are extremely hard to lock down. But Fafnir provides much more consistent damage output than both of those two supports.
I think it just allows you to be a fool. Is
Yes.
kind of how I think about Fafnir, of like, I am being a fool right now. I will press my ultimate and still be able to get away after being a fool.
Yes, and that's fun. Who doesn't love being the fool and getting away with it? That's Mike's whole shtick. Have you seen his Twitter?
Is he beautiful? I thought it was just real Mike, though. I didn't think it was anything special.
Oh, well, no, he is a fool. That is Mike. I'm not saying that isn't Mike. I'm just
Can you
saying
say that about a player?
Of course.
Okay.
As long as I'm right. I just can't be wrong about it. That's the key. You know, libel, slander, the best defense against all of them is just being right.
I'm glad I'm never wrong as well then, because that just makes life so much easier. Red buff on the left-hand side is spawning now for the Warriors, and you can see the sort of grouping from Jade Dragons towards this middle area. You can see Morrigan's actually stepped up quite a way, but those respawns of the Vines may have prevented something for a second. Pressure on Dodders in mid though, and he will turn in to this Gilgamesh one more time, but immediately you see the response from Mike to transform, look towards Neil, and Neil going to get caught on that Riptide at the same time there. Still more pressure on Neil at the moment, but Cubo Fred's in the area. Keep an eye on Sam for Soccer, who's coming to this fight late, though. And it's Cubo Fred surrounded and under pressure, leaps away. But in comes Nika a little bit early into the fight, looking towards Hurrywin, who needs some help, and gets it. But will it be enough?
No, it won't be. Nika's able to pick him up. Now Sam in trouble. Good stun from PBM, but I don't think it's good enough.
Oh, fine, okay, though, doing great work on Vote's rotation to at least make sure this doesn't get too out of hand. Nika, though, chase him all the way, gets a double, but now he's on an island on this right-hand side, surrounded by 3, as Panda Cat makes the rotation and answers back the kill. So Vote and Panda both rotate there. Great work from Fine, in my opinion, just to make sure that didn't hurt the Dragons as bad as it could have.
Nika got a really good blink off. I don't know if it was possible for the Dragons to put him in combat before he got that blink off, but they weren't able to do so. He ends up killing Hurrywin, who lives for a good amount of time. That's what Tiamat usually ends up doing, but still ends up falling. Just a little bit greedy, I think, from Hurry to jump in and try and get that kill on the Neil. Tank boots, still tank boots, man. Still very, very difficult to take down that support, even when he's a little bit behind. Neil ends up surviving a little bit longer than the Jade Dragons were ready for, but Hurry still gets a lot of damage off, still is able to bait the rest of the team in, and both the side laners end up falling for the Oni Warriors, and that's maybe you're a little upset that Hurry ends up dying and doesn't maintain a lead over Dardez, but look at the experience advantage now in the side lanes for the Jade Dragons. Level 17 in 15 minutes for Final K.
Yeah, the level of farming these days is strange. I mean, there was a little bit more farm on the map at the moment, Ryan, right, with the changes to the season.
Yep.
But at the same time, like, a level a minute was always the standard, if anything, of, like, that was a good lead.
Yes, that would be a really good lead. I remember during the offseason going back and watching, like, Season 1 and Season 2 Worlds. Remember the talking point days of if you get your Warlock staff done before 12 minutes, you're in a really good spot?
Yeah.
Look at the itemization now. 3 items done for Fred, and he's behind. Like, that's how the gold income works in Smite these days.
Nobody likes being poor in Smite. That's what we learned. So we just gave everyone more gold for the most part, except supports, because Paul supports, right?
Yeah, Graham.
Classic.
No supports get no gold. Mike has 3 items as well, by the way. Yeah,
Well,
supports get no
They're
gold.
not fun items, though, are they? They're forced because of the stupid teammates that need protections because they can't stay alive long enough. Don't start that with me.
Hey, man, I don't need the help. You just build damage and kill them for me. That's the help that I need.
Left-hand side, though, Mike trading out with Neil again, but Hammer off the mark this time around. Vote walking in, and Mike could be in a bit of a pinch there if he's not careful. Talk about pinches Sam for soccer in one and gets out from Fine, okay, but it won't be enough in time to survive. Cubo gets the kill. However, the ultimate of the Moonlight comes through from Fine to make it a 1-for-1. This exchange between these two solo runners again, though, I don't see anything happen unless Mike gets involved and gets a hammer and does so. Sunder, as you said, is available, not used just yet. And slowly but surely, they're whittling down the health bar of Nika, and he does drop down for a double, but Darda's into the fray, looking at Fine, not enjoying what he's dealing with, though, and he's now trying to get away.
Sunder off the mark from PBM, but I don't think it's going to matter too much. Dardez, good pathing. Minions spot him out. I think...
Do you chase this?
Yeah, I think you can chase... Actually, maybe not. His stealth is going to be up pretty soon.
I don't think it's with... I mean, he's going to try to do the rope-a-dope back towards... Maybe he gets the blue here.
Yeah, he's out. No one's going to be able to find him from this position. So good pathing coming from Dardez. A little bit unfortunate that Sunder didn't hit, but it ended up not mattering anyways. Fine didn't have a whole lot of gas left in the tank.
I mean, I kind of look at what they could have done there instead, though, Dragons. They could have taken blue already and that tier 1 tower. They may still get both anyway if they're luckily enough on this right-hand side, especially with the casualties there. But it's still tied up in kills, but as you can see, we mentioned a 1,000 gold lead for Dragons a little bit earlier on. It's now stretched out to about 3,000 in this game. And it really is the level differential between the two side lanes so far.
Final K is what, level 19 now before the 18-minute mark? He's going to be getting to that upgraded bluestone sooner rather than later, and that is a big power spike for him. He's going to be even harder to kill because of that extra HP, and he's going to put out even more damage. I've really liked the build that he's gone for here. It's all hybrid, nothing truly perfectly offensive, but just playing a little bit more defensive, and I anticipate that this is going to be a Prid win And you're double dipping on a very similar passive for Glad Shield and for Grid Win.
Yeah.
You build these protections, you get paid for it on both of those items. I like the build a lot.
And Gold Fury going to go down relatively uncontested here by the Oni Warriors. Dragons get that into their coffers, extending their lead a little bit more so. We can already see the Dragons realize, hey, we've got a lead, and they do this pretty effectively for my liking, the Dragons. They realize when a couple of members have got a bit of a lead in their lane and go, we should abuse this now.
They really know how to put the pressure on. They don't let you breathe once they start to get a lead, and that's what this team does really, really well, because so often we see teams get a 4,000 lead, then they'll
sit back,
invade a red,
coast.
They'll take a blue. Yeah, these back camps I'll take. But they don't really group as 5 quite early enough. And think about last game where Panda Cat gets really ahead, rotates over to solo instantly, and starts putting pressure on that side of the map. The Dragons do not hesitate to group and fight, and I think that willingness to get together earlier on in the game still catches some teams off guard.
Execution is just picked up by Panda Cat in its entirety on his trip back there. Shows he's been out there farming more than returning to base regularly. Also picks up the Light Blade to go inside it, so you can see now his build has evolved a little bit more so than Votes, who's gone for the Transcendence Acid that we're seeing more of these days. I do like this build though. I mean, it's always been the way. Devourer's Gauntlets or Transcendence, and now and again we'll get a meta where both are viable, but one generally always takes a lead for some reason or another.
I'm still not totally sold on Devos being bad. I mean,
I don't think so either.
I think that you can still go Devourer's Gauntlets. I think it's more the gods in the meta right now, mostly Chiron, that make you feel like I'd rather be playing with Transcendence builds than Devourer's Gauntlet builds, but I really don't think they're that far off. Wouldn't surprise me for some non-Transcendence builds start showing up.
Neilmar was baiting for his team to rotate in, and they changed their mind and rotated away, and that means he's under a lot of pressure now by Panda, and Mike who go all in for the kill. Apollo in the sky coming in, gets the beads out of Panda Cat. Cuba Fred now on the rotation too. Meanwhile, Final K has wrapped around the back looking at Dardes. Neilmar's still alive and healthy enough as Mike leaps out of the Shamash, but Panda's already dead here. In comes Sam with a blink over the wall looking at Cubo Fred. Cubo needs some help sooner rather than later, and he's not going to get it. The Moonlight Waltz causes some problems for Final K as he gets the kill, but Daughters answers back on Sam. Daughters still alive at the tail end here, but Vote, different story as Final K gets a double kill.
Still,
Nika
gets a massive ultimate as Mike tanking up this tier 2. He's got nowhere to go. Fine would be a huge shutdown for Nika if he can get him.
Luckily enough, it was Horiwin that got Tower aggro there, but Nika should still be able to get this kill on Final K. Although Horiwin, now under pressure himself too, has to whittle down that tier 1 tower. Nika's looking for another one. He might be able to get it here.
Oh, but Hurry still has that jump over the wall. Nika's de-transforming and has Blink up. I think he might be able to find him unless Hurry's just a little bit too sneaky.
Blinks on in, finds the damage. Just continue the chase, but Hurry doing a good job of going through his rotation. Does have the soul gem too, remember, for a bit more sustain if he needs it. We'll get it just there for a little bit, but Nika still wants the chase going. The Bluestone Pendant dot will not be enough to bring down Horiwin though, as a crazy endeavor across the map. Who wins?
Warriors, because they didn't lose a whole lot of stuff, and they've lost a whole lot of stuff basically every engagement previous to that one. Just a little bit too aggressive from Panda, and ultimately it probably goes well enough if he's just more accurate with those ultimate shots. But because Neil lives and then hits a really nice fadeaway Sunder as his team is getting there, it makes it really easy to shut down Panda Cat. His first death. Now Final K takes his first death. That's a lot of shutdown gold the Dragons just gave over. Certainly not the end of the world. They're still up 5,000 gold. You know, the game is still certainly in their hands. But definitely a bit of loose
I was
play
going to say,
there.
it was a crazy play because it was Neil baiting originally that ended up starting that fight out when his team weren't even around.
Yes.
He looked like he was stepped up because he had teammates rotating. Vote needs some help here. Look at the damage that Panda just put onto him with those 3 shots. I think Hammer connected as well, though, from Polar Bear at the tail end.
And Sunder.
The Sunder too, okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense of how that health bar dropped as low as it did. But on its own, the Transcendence build with Chiron and that ultimate, just so much damage.
It really does. And maybe if Panda hit the 3rd shot, it might have been enough to kill with Masterful Shot as he landed. I don't know.
We've seen that before.
It would have been close. We've seen it before. It would have been close because Vote, of course, is going to land back in the fountain. But a lot of times that damage can come through before you get those heal ticks off. Either way, it's not like the Dragons use a lot in that engagement. Panda has some CDR with the Transcendence. Mike has Relic Dagger and has upgraded the Sunder, so it's on a pretty low cooldown. don't think that's going to stop the Dragons from being aggressive anytime soon.
That Spirit Deso, though, dude. Come on. That's crazy. That's just confidence, that is. So a nice ton of power, but at the same time, you know, you're squishy. That's all I'm going to say. Nika in the
But it's
jungle.
Fafnir. You get to be a fool and get away with it all the time.
I guess.
That's the type of guy that can get away with it.
We're teaching people to play Fafnir because you control is kind of what we're saying here, though.
Well, if you hit enough stuff, then I would agree with that statement.
Fury under threat right now from the Dragons again as they look to extend the gold lead. Nico trying to get in here as quick as he can, but he does have a mystical mail, so the blink won't be as easy to get through there to try and cause a problem. Dragons immediately take that and turn around.
Still not enough to really put the Warriors down in this game, but certainly opens up potential for this Fire Giant. Jade Dragons don't have great objective DPS quite yet, though actually no, Panda Cat has upgraded his Bluestone. So remember that the Bluestone upgrades, these Bluestone brooches, deal percent HP damage, and that includes 2 Fire Giants. So you look at a god like Tsukiyomi and Chiron that are doing this percent HP damage with Bluestone Brooch, you actually do get pretty good objective DPS on the objective with these types of builds, but it requires still longer than something like that crit build that you would really want to be really DPSing that objective.
Nika forced back for a second or two there as Dragons start to step up on the right, but Vote still pushing the left-hand side. Makes sense of playing the Apollo, but needs to keep an eye on the team fight situation on this right. Dardes stealthing towards that Greater Scorpion area, but Hurrywin reads the situation well. All the while, Fine OK and Panda were whittling down that Fire Giant for now, but I think they realize Apollo's not done over there, so they're trying to get aggressive here preemptively, Dragons. Look for a situation or a fight rather than trying to push the Fire Giant. All the while, though, Vote is now on a Tier 2 tower.
This Apollo pick has really thrown a wrench in the normal Tiamat plan. Those minions don't make a difference at all on the far side when you have someone who's split pushing.
I mean, it puts the pressure back on you, right? Polar Bear Mike is already transformed, though, jumping in towards Nika as Nika ultimates transforms too. Meanwhile, where's Fine OK going? In the sky is Apollo, but Panda Cat is already dead thanks to Dardes, who finds a great little individual play. Still dealing with Hurrywin and Mike, though, not for long. Sam was also there too, but Apollo in the sky, looking to come back down towards Fine OK, who is surrounded. A good stun from Neil will set up a kill for Nika, and now we've got a 4-on-3 where Warriors win a very good fight there.
Did Dardes somehow just 2v1 in the back line and kill Panda through both relics?
Yes.
And his ultimate? Something tells me something went wrong there in that communication, because surely Panda should be able to get away with use of both relics and the ultimate, or Hurry should be doing a better job peeling for him in that moment, but you should not be letting the Morrigan 2v1 you in those moments. Really good play from Dardes individually, of course, in order to make it happen. The Jade Dragons did not even come close to really winning that team fight, honestly. Fine OK was able to get the dive off and get a lot of damage, but didn't really get anybody that low. And remember that fight was a 4v5 for the vast majority of it. Vote came in at the very end and killed a dude who was probably dead anyways. That was not a particularly impressive fight from the Dragons.
No, not at all. I think that's one thing that Dragons composition have. They will run at you, but the problem is their backline can be exposed. And like you said, I mean, Hurrywin, in terms of peel, what's he really got to offer? I guess he could summon the Beast for a stun for a second if he's lucky.
It actually peels pretty well. I mean, you've got stun in mage form, you've got the Beast or the knock up, and you can transform and then knock up again. So you've got pretty good peel options.
But you're a mage player. You just want to do damage. You don't want to protect people, do you?
Well, of course I do, because I just want to let that guy kill everyone for me. ADCs are way more OP than us, so my only job is to make sure that that dude lives and so that he can kill everyone for me. So, it doesn't matter what damage I'm doing.
So as a mid player, you're blaming Hurrywin, not Panda Cat there for dying.
I think that well, I didn't watch it, so I'd have to go back and see it, but it's possible that
if you had to gamble, you know, imagine if you were a gambler. What would you say
if I was a gambler, no, Hurry will yell at me more if I say it's his fault, so I'm going to go with Panda.
Okay, Panda, step it up, son. You've got to play a little bit better here, but the good news is the Warriors are stepping it up and have closed this gold differential. And because the game's gone on so long, we talked about experience being a factor once upon a time. It isn't anymore, though. Just look at the graph situation, how far ahead Dragons were at a moment in time, and how one team fight can really switch things around if things work out well for you.
This is really not an easy team fight to go up against, though, of the Warriors. I mean, this Yamoja makes it pretty difficult. The pressure that Vote puts on the map, and he just got a really nice back off because Fine OK was hunting him on that left-hand side. You're in a pretty good position now if you're the Warriors. Despite how badly this early game went, you weathered the storm. And now you just have to worry about keeping these team fights going in your favor. This Morrigan pick, if she can keep getting that type of value, is going to work out really well, but If the Dragons can make sure that Dardes doesn't get as much damage off as he did in that last fight, I think they're going to be okay.
And realistically, if you see the Apollo split pushing again, you know to focus Dardes priority number 1 and not allowing that window to get on in there. Do want to go back to the Apollo again one more time, though, because you mentioned the Tiamat situation. I think that's one of the reasons you see the Apollo drafted a bit more now.
Agreed.
To deal with it and, you know, give as good as you get. You want to play split push? I'll play split push with you, no problem.
Right, I can answer these minions. You can't answer me, and you're going to have to fight around it. I mean, look, Hurwin's minions are pushing out that left-hand side, but that's not going to be a problem whatsoever because Vote is there.
And Vote's still there for the time being, and that's why the focus is on Neil Moore on this right. Neil being pressured heavily by Fine and Polar Bear Mike, but the Riptide very useful for giving yourself a bit of distance too. Apollo ulted early though. Vote's on the way to the fight and looking for an opportunity. I don't think he's going to give away his ulted though, just to keep Dragons on their toes.
So they see that he's not on that left side wave, and that's enough information that I would expect that he's used the ultimate.
Well, Fury's up too though, so maybe he's there.
True.
Fred will use those beads and have to leap away. Small win for the Dragons at the tail end of Polar Bear Mike's ultimate there that's now on cooldown for this Dance of the Fire Giant.
Dardes is lurking really far back. Look at where he's positioned, and it's very common for the Morgan to want to come around the side of where Dardes is right now. You kind of want to have this mid-wave pushed up far enough that you could come in from top left mids, because that's an area that the Dragons don't really want to have warded. They would much rather have the wards deep in the enemy jungle, but the Morgan forces you to change your warding patterns. But they haven't really warded particularly effectively for her in my mind. This sentry isn't really where she's going to be taking off from. That's where you have to ward, because you're not going to see her when she's stealth. I think you really need to have wards in the mid lane, because she's likely to stealth from lane in through the jungle, and by now she has enough movement speed on the 3 to get well past this ward without ever being seen.
Well, wall coverage so far, as you were saying, for Dragons is pretty solid on around that Fire Giant, but they don't feel comfortable just attempting this Fire Giant or forcing a fight, because the only ones presenting themselves at the moment is Nika and Neil. They're looking for Dardes wherever possible. And meanwhile, though, you can see the Fury was available for a while then. It does look like it's going to go the way of the Dragons, who've just slowly moved their attention to the left-hand side for a moment.
Yeah, this should be an easy secure from the Dragons, and it is. And that's, I believe, their second Primal Fury of the game, and that matters a lot where you have these Fire Giant dances. It makes your secure better, it makes your steal potential better, it means that you can bait longer around the EFG. Even if that is only their first, it makes a difference. So definitely a good Fury for the Dragons to get. Maybe with the Apollo even better than an Oni wave, because normally Oni waves are the things that you really want when you're Fire Giant dancing, because it puts pressure on the side lanes, you can play around them. With the Apollo there to stop the Oni waves more easily, I think I might actually would rather have Primal here if I'm the Dragons.
Well, Vote was on the left-hand side for a second there. He went back to base, picked up a Sentry Ward, I believe, for himself, and he's now heading back towards that duo side one more time. See exactly how that plays out, because you can see Fine OK is also on this left-hand side, trying to catch him out in the jungle, and that, as you said, is probably the dance between the two. You can see Vote just chilling under that tier 2 tower still. He's waiting for the push to come through, because they've not got eyes on the Dragons just yet.
Yeah, good, just good game sense by Vote, that he knows that he's potentially vulnerable, that he could get caught.
Yep.
Now that everyone will show on wards, Fine OK just showed on that one, Sam just walked over another, Vote's going to be able to step up and be a little bit more aggressive. I think that as we look at how this, or why this lead in the Fire Giant fights haven't really worked out so well for the Dragons, it might be because of the lack of frenzy. Mike's gone Onk, and that has really stopped their objective DPS potential.
Great little opportunity for the Dragons, though, with Mike's wraparound there, just to separate the Warriors from defending that tier 2 tower that became opportune, because the minions were consistently pushing that right-hand side, and nobody really went to defend it. And as you can see, Vote has got to this left-hand Phoenix finally, but Fine OK already back to defend as the Dragons hang around, the rest of them at least, the Fire Giant area.
Smart by Vote to not mess around or hesitate, stick around, try and get some poke damage off. It is very clearly time to leave whenever Fine OK shows up. He can just close those gaps too easily.
Don't think we were seeing a kill onto Mike there, but if that drop kick would have connected from Cuvo, the chain would have at least caused a couple of issues for Mike to lose some health there. Interesting game, especially now with the enhanced Fire Giant online as well, that this could go either way with how long the respawn time is slowly going to go the longer the game goes on.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's win a team fight and you've won the game, most likely. Just don't, yeah, there are some towers up on the Jade Dragon side. They've got the extra tier 1, but it's on its last legs. A stiff breeze is going to knock that thing over. You can really get that pretty easily. So I think that the Oni Warriors are in a position where they really just have to win one team fight. from here, and it shouldn't be impossible for them. I mean, Vote just sold his boots, picked up a Deathbringer. He's got really good all-in potential now. Boots are sold for Panda Cat. He looks like he's a little bit short of Odysseus Bow, but he's waiting for it in base. Final K sold the boots. He's a little bit short of getting something like a Crusher, but shouldn't be too far off. It's not going to be too long before the Dragons are about as strong as they can be.
I love the Odysseus Bow. Again, just mentioning the stealth from Morrigan. The Dodgers has made an impact with Neil stepping up, though, towards Sam, and Dodgers following on in two. Riptide caused an issue for Sam that I believe he had to beat away from that. Did he not? No, didn't escape it for now. Still, Hurrywin stepped up. Around the back was Cubo Fred, and Cubo Fred forcing the situation onto Hurrywin, who's now surrounded. Trying to use that extra tank in it to stay alive, but kicked into a wall. Polar Bear Mike will make it a 1-for-1, but all the while, the fight's still raging on. Sam for Soccer was in dangerous territory, forced out by the Warriors. Nika has died, but 2 members of Dragons have died.
And Fred just gets away with this wild pathing. I mean, he comes around the back, realizes that Panda Cat's alone, but then instantly hops over this back camp wall and finds himself a Tiamat that was not ready to be drop-kicked into the midst of the entire team. And I thought Hurry, after that, did a really good job of surviving as long as he could. He had a well-timed Aegis, used that base form ultimate, and got a bunch of scales and got his damage mitigation up pretty nicely. But you just can't be in the teeth of the team for that long without being punished. And Final K's solo dive onto the backline ends up being not fruitful. He did get Aegis from both Dardes and Vote, so that is worth noting. And I don't know that the Warriors have enough time to DPS this EFG before they're back and up and ready to go.
But maybe they want to pick using the stealth of Dardas one more time, but Polar Bear Mike will separate the opportunity to get into Panda Cat for now. Fire Giant starting to be hit, though, by the Oni Warriors, and Dardas sneaking around again, looking for a target. Sam does have the Magi's Cloak. That's what we saw earlier on, used to keep him alive from the Riptide. This Fire Giant's getting very low. Panda over the wall, too, with the snipes. Isn't enough damage. Remember, they're holding damage here, the Warriors. Trusted in themselves, and they will get the FG. Panda Cat also gets pinched on by Dardes, too. Leaping in goes Cubo Fred with a drop kick from hell to take out Panda Cat, and the walls drop down as Final K wraps around the back. Only really good damage onto Neil. Still into the pit goes Hurrywin, though, and the Tiamat's causing a problem. Apollo dunks back onto Hurrywin, keeping him zoned, but now Vote alone against 3.
Knockup is good from Hurrywin, but Nika finds time to find him in the back. And now Sam for Soccer is the lowest one remaining for the Dragons, and Nika's Mystical Mail's going to get the job done.
Well, what comes off this, though? Fire Giant Enhanced goes to Warriors, but it's not the damage dealers. It's not these carries that are going to be able to burst down the towers quickly. They will go down relatively quick still, but I don't know how much they can really get. At one point I was like, they could end. But Vote dies, and that changes the game.
Yeah, I mean, a big wave coming on this right-hand side, but it's a ways away. You get Tier 2 in right, Tier 1 in mid, Oni Fury, and that's about it that you get uncontested. But Fred's got to be careful here. I don't know if he wins this trade-up against Fine.
I don't know. Well, with Fire Giant buff, though, that could really come into play a little bit, and you can kind of see how it's working out. Thorns used by Fine, and the Moonlight, and the extra shield from the Prince. Oh! But a trade-off of the century between the two. Drop kick into the wall is still not enough thanks to Bluestone Brooch.
You know, Pon always said that he really wants Gilgamesh to feel like a fighter, and that was pure Rocky right there, to go down with a KO punch on each side. Perfect by both sides. Don't think either could have really played it that much better. Really good drop kick coming from Fred. But that's a win for the Jade Dragons, that they just took another EFG off of the Oni Warriors.
Good point. I guess the best differential between the two is Cubo did not use any relics in that engagement whatsoever.
True. Even
though the relics, I don't think it would have made a huge difference with that 1v1. The fact that he's going to have them available before Final K does could be a difference maker. And the Pridwin, as we mentioned there, that shield when he used the ultimate came through at the right moment. Let's watch this back and walk me through it, right?
Yeah, it was crazy, man. I mean, maybe at the very beginning there was a stun that Fred could have beads, but other than that, I mean, it was just perfect DPS racing for it. Maybe right there, yeah, Fred should have probably beads that initial stun, and he probably wins it for free at that point, but he timed this leap really, really well, dodged at least one shot of that piercing moonlight, and this dropkick was perfectly timed.
But the trade-off of those two basics at the end is the biggest difference maker there between the two. I will say as well, taking into account Gilgamesh's leap does give him lifesteal on landing, and you can see that lifesteal just come through in the nick of time there to help out that situation. 18-13 then. Warriors still with a power play for a little while. But no Phoenix is down in the game does not give anyone a huge advantage in this one. The opportunity of split push is relatively even with how this is going, especially with Tiamat's minions alongside an Apollo. And the only minions have slowly but surely petering out here as Fine OK is going to farm that middle wave. And the Fire Giant still not up for another minute or two.
Still think that overall the Warriors are in a position where they've been able to answer these Tsukiyomi dives really well the last few times.
Yeah.
And Sam and Fine have not particularly been on the same page. And it's difficult to get on top of a backline that either isn't there because Vote is split pushing, or you can't see because it's the Morrigan. And Dardes is not going to be positioning like a traditional mage. And the dive from the Warriors has been very good. Fred and Nika have worked well together in the backline, and Neil's found really good Rivers rebukes as well. All of those have been very difficult to deal with, and for as good as Tiamat can be at surviving, I don't think she really kills these tanks particularly well, and I think we've seen that weakness kind of show up in this game where Fred and Nika have been able to really just gun Heroine down in these team fights. So I wonder what adjustment the Dragons are going to make. Are they going to send Sam deeper with Fine because Sam has tried to turn and peel a lot of the time? Or is Fine going to peel back and they're going to try and just death ball around these Warriors?
A lot of pings going on there because both teams realizing where the other team was at the same time. Like, hey, we can look for this right in Phoenix real quick, says the Warriors. But Dragons, sensing that they showed themselves, have set up a trap for themselves on the right-hand side just in case. Both teams fall back. Fire Giant is spawning momentarily. However, Tier 2 in mid is exposed for a moment. Cubo's working away. Has to be careful, though, because leaping in his mind finds the hammer. Where's the follow-up damage, though? Sam looking for it and will blink on in towards Cubo. Cubo drops the wins. Darda's in there looking for a stun. Finds it on Sam and forces Sam's ultimate. All the while, Mike, though, doing great work with that transformation to bring down Cubo Fred. And this starts it off for a 1-for-0.
Fine OK is going to go back into
Sam's
the Rivers
dead.
rebuke, but he's got damage onto Neil. Fine OK going to be able to grab that one as Panicat is on the run in the backline.
Carry trades, though. It's Nika and Darda still alive, but meanwhile, Hurrywind has survived here. And this is going to be not a base race as such. I think this is going to be Tier 2 tower exchanges at best. Darda is already basing, just in case. Nika's got a minion wave, so he can take a Tier 2 tower there. So all in all, the fight nullified. No Fury up, so I can't see them doing that either. Don't even think you can look to Fire Giant if you're Dragons, I guess.
I don't think so either. Just Mike really carried that whole fight for the Dragons. I mean, he basically solos Fred by himself. He just gets a little bit of help from Sam on that Mulan, and it's enough to get at least this Tier 2 in left. They end up not getting the Tier 2 in mid, but the Tier 2 in left is guaranteed. And now there's only one tower left standing on the Oni Warrior side. But as you highlighted, Nika was able to get the lone tower still standing on the Dragon side of the map. So we are, for all intents and purposes, even.
I do question the one thing from Dragons, though, that there's no mystical mail in their composition at all. I think there's room for it somewhere, or there should have been room for it somewhere, and I think that would have helped him a little bit more in some of these skirmishes where they don't know where Dardas is. He's able to get in and thread into these fights without being noticed sometimes, and that is going to hurt.
Yeah, maybe, but I kind of like Sam's option of the Erendite a little bit better. I mean, it's obviously much squishier, but it gives him a lot more offensive capability and allows him to dive in pretty effectively. I don't have a problem with the lack of mystical mail. You know, if Fine OK was playing something like Arthur, maybe I'd agree. But on the Tsukiyomi, you need more hybrid. You need more items that can actually provide significant damage with your abilities because you were able to throw so many out.
Bit of a change up from Dragons, though. Look at this. They're pushing left-hand side more at the moment, putting pressure on mid, not around the FG, just leaving Mike there. And I don't think Warriors are aware that there is a grouping towards his middle left-hand side. Primal Fury is coming up again, though, too, which they could look for. Or they could also use these minions and their power to look for a cheeky Phoenix.
Yeah, they were looking for Vote to step up and clear this big wave.
This is a fight trade for FG versus Phoenix.
I suppose so. I mean, Panda doesn't have relics, so he doesn't want to be anywhere near this fight either way. So that makes some sense to me, but this might not be a good trade.
FG's not guaranteed. They're looking and hunting for Hurrywind. There was Cubo, but he couldn't find the dropkick at all. Phoenix down into the throne, and they go. Will Dragons end? Where is the team? Nika's back just in time, just to make sure he runs them away. They're going to step in that portal and slow themselves down, but Panda's taking a ton of damage for that. Fire Giant also getting low. Fine OK forcing his Panda will get the kill. Meanwhile, the Fire Giant goes the way of the Oni Warriors, and Fine OK's under pressure. Darda's looking for a stun, went for the 3-man big play. Instead, Fine OK's alive because of it, and he'll get a kill. Vote looking to chase after Hurrywind, but Mike finds a good stun. Hurry goes back in for the turnaround play. Spin to win, drop kick to the wall. 2 for 2s and a triple for Cubo. Is this going to be a quad? Just the question.
I don't think it matters if it is. It's a deicide for the Oni Warriors, and they have pulled this game back from the brink. Absolutely. They've got 40 seconds until Panda Cat is back up. And I just think the Dragons got a little lost on what the call was there. Panda Cat gets chased down and killed by Nika. Again, Panda has no relics, but Sam has got to turn and help him. I mean, he can't just let Nika turn and get that kill onto Panda Cat, because if they at least kill Nika, then you have at least one area that you could keep threatening the Titan from that position. You can pull the rest of the Warriors out of that fight around Fire Giant and make them respect you coming to potentially end the game. But because they just let Nika walk down Panda, and he's able to get the kill walk down Panda by Nika, now you don't have to worry about your Titan anymore. It's just Sam and Nika holding hands, walking to the rest of that team fight. I think the Dragons really messed that one up.
If we see Sam and, of course, Sam fall back alongside Panda Cat there, do we see a different tale of events? Fire Giant still goes the way of the Warriors with how it played out on that right side anyway. Do you still fall back and you don't lose the game at least?
No, I think, I mean, maybe Sam's supposed to try and live at that point, but I don't really think so. I think that after that, the Dragons did a lot of good things. Hurwin jumping in, I think it's absolutely the right call. Yeah. He nearly saved the game with that one. Sam just got there slightly too late. I really think that Sam just has to peel for Panda, and they have to just all in that Cucullin. They don't know how many people have backed from the Warriors, but that's the risk of that play. I think you have to just take the gamble, because as it played out, I mean, obviously hindsight's 20/20, but you can't just lose your ADC and then let Nika still come in and affect the fight.
The Warriors are hanging on in there. Their chance of qualification slim, but they've still got a shot if they can find this next game. After the break, we'll find out if they can do just that.
And keeps on coming every week. Ooh, he wants the summer, with schools in the summer, and we live by his mother. I keep my drugs in the cover, 'cause I'm only sweet when I'm high. I'm only sweet when I'm high. In class, I learned a lot. Two pretty boys to pass the time. 'Cause I got that good shit, American pride. Kiss the kids goodnight and take the Harley for a ride. Ooh, he wants the suburbs, where school's up for summer, and we live by his mother. I keep my drugs in the cover, 'cause I'm only sweet when I'm high. 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 I get so bored, scrub the floors, then get drunk while doing chores. Does he even know me? Ooh, I'm never sure when he'll be home. Get into trouble on my own, I don't get lonely. Ooh, he wants the suburbs, where school's out for summer, and we live by his mother. I keep my drugs in the cover, 'cause I'm only sweet when I'm high. I'm only sweet when I'm high. I'm only sweet when I'm high. I'm only sweet when
Welcome back, Smite fans, to the Smite Pro League powered by Alienware. And not only that, I can't help but notice how happy all of the players look in that little bumper segment, and it's probably due to the fact that they're repping some pretty sick apparel, which you too can have for yourself by heading on over to shop.smiteproleague.com. Make sure to peep all of the inside apparel that's up for grabs and show some support to some of your favorite teams. And for some of you guys at home, maybe a couple of Oni Warriors fans now starting to rise up and get a little excited here, Gore, because that Game 2 end was probably not what the Jade Dragons were hoping for in the slightest.
Not at all. I mean, there's a lot of things that happened in Game 2 the Dragons were not hoping for. I mean, early on, it feels like it's a Warriors-dominated game. Then it gets a little murky in the middle. I mean, we even get to the point where there's a full-on trade between FineOK and Cuvo. Some fun stuff that goes on. Hey, speaking of the Devil, it's going to show up right here. I mean, this is something that you don't get often, if at all, in Smite that usually comes through. And Aggro had mentioned it on the cast that there's maybe a small shot where Cuvo's able to beads at the very beginning of that, win that entire trade. But who cares? We got a cool play out of it, and that's all that matters. But they're just so much of this where, you know, yeah, hey, the Dragons got a couple back, but almost every single fight, no matter what they were able to pick up, it was really just delaying the Warriors, not really getting a good win or a good trade for themselves.
And the Warriors all day long, slow and steady, wins the race here. But this is, I think, a little bit more of the Cuvo Fred from old, or the Cuvo Fred that we saw last season even.
Yeah.
He really had quite the showing on this Gilgamesh performance. I think he really brought a whole lot of space creation alongside of Nika, and both of them just seem to have stellar performances here.
Yeah, Nika, if I have to make sure I have the right number. I'm pretty sure it was his 1,000th kill that he hit that game. Like, just ridiculous amounts of play that he was able to accomplish. And it kind of goes in line. Like, the Warriors all played well, but still Nika managed to look slightly better than everybody on the team just to make sure. I mean, what was he? Yeah, 10, 4, and 5 there for the solo laner.
That's
he
pretty
had
good.
a very, very good game. Cuvo right behind him at 8 and 4, though. I think if those two can find this amount of control and play like that, it doesn't matter if, you know, well, Neil has a lot of assists under his name, but, like, if Vote's able to get anything done, if Neil's able to really pilot the team fight, because those two did it all. I mean, they had everything you could have wanted.
Oh, where do you think the collapse really started, though, for the Jade Dragons in match number 2? Because we did see some early game struggles, of course, but I honestly felt like Hurrywin was really putting in work on the Tiamat. It was honestly a bit tragic, especially that last team fight not going their way. I was honestly waiting for that to be a little bit of an upset for the Oni Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like Hurry and Mike did almost everything in their power to drive that game forward. Mike at one point continued fighting despite losing his carries because he knew he could pick up some kills, and I think that's kind of the pressure they had. It kind of just feels like, and I'm going to throw him under the bus, like Mulan didn't work out too well for Sam, and that's not just, oh, hey, whether or not she's a good pick, that, you know, I'm still up to debate that, but that was not her game. That was not Sam's game. If he had that performance on any god, I'd be saying that.
For what it's worth, it was still very exciting to see that much flavor. It's a bold pick to take. It's a pick that screams Sam for soccer as well, though. He's always had a tendency to kind of stray into the more unique jungle choices. And I think I understand the potential that the Mulan had in that set. I just don't think that the Jade Dragons were really able to They just weren't able to really collapse to make that Mulan pick ideal. And for a god like Mulan, if you're not able to actually just run them down quite literally the entire game, she's usually not going to be feeling too great.
Yeah, I think that's something they learned the hard way more than they really would have liked to. And this is where things get interesting. And like, trends don't necessarily matter too much in Smite. Like Chiron, like when you look at god trends, it's like, oh, well, this god's getting picked up a lot more. There's something about them that you need to know. This one's absolutely useless for you, but First Pick has won both of these games so far this set, so maybe it's something that's going to lean in favor of the Dragons. And Hurry had a great performance there on Tiamat. He gets it right back.
Definitely a scary sight if you are an Oni Warriors fan or even one of the Oni Warriors players themselves, because Tiamat certainly not the reason why the Jade Dragons fell in game number 2. Hurry nearly made the hero play happen, in fact, for his team on multiple occasions. But the Kokolin response is strong, and I want to take a second to kind of draw away from the picks and bans score, because keep in mind, this match might be one of the most important matches for this playoffs group, because Jade Dragons, should they fall to the Oni Warriors here, I want to remind you guys back at home that if the Solar Scarabs then win their set against the Camelot Kings, there is a big potential for the three-way tie. In fact, it would be an actual three-way tie between Jade Dragons, Oni Warrior, and the Camelot Kings due to the fact that their head-to-heads all have games against each other.
It's gonna make, again, it makes things a lot more convoluted for the admins more than anybody to figure out. But that does open up, again, if the Scarabs are able to win tomorrow, then there's a chance Group B has to have, you know, potentially more games, things like that come afterward to try and balance out and figure out who actually goes to playoffs.
And look, we just had a 40-minute barn burner just about between these two teams, but neither side is really looking to take it slow in match number 3 here. Gore, King Arthur, Tiamat, Kakolin, Serket. I'm seeing a whole lot of ideal God pick choices for both of these teams so far.
Yeah, I'll give the bad news for the Dragons. As much as I like the way Hurry's played Tiamat, he's 1 win versus 2 losses, so he hasn't necessarily been able to find as much success on her as he would like. And that maybe is detrimental, but then I look at Panda Cat and the way he's been playing Danzaburo, and I'm not worried anymore. If you get Herwin from last game, you get Panda Cat from game 1, you put them together, that covers the carries pretty easily. They should be able to do everything. King Arthur fits well. It's all on to, you know, Mike, whatever frontline he's going to play, and then it's just easy setup for the Dragons.
On the other hand, though, Oni Warriors locking in that Emoja one more time for Neil Ma,
scary.
and that is definitely terrifying if you are Hurry, because keep in mind what's already happened in an earlier game. It's just that crushing wave is so restricting. Even when you think that you're out, if you don't completely leave open an actual entrance for yourself, Yamoja's going to be sure to cut it off, and Neil Ma's Yamoja at that, I think, can definitely get the job done.
And it's one of those things, like, it's such a weird thing to think about and to focus on, but, like, Phantom as a relic is really only ever bought, against, like, Odin. Like, he's the only person I think we get to see it too often. It's only ever picked up. But Yamoja and Ymir being so prominent, like, especially if we haven't seen him in a long time, but, like, if Thor gets added into the mix, like, all of a sudden you're starting to look at, like, man, Osiris passive seems really helpful right around now. Like, Phantom seems really, really helpful. I don't think it's going to take precedent over other stuff, although upgraded Phantom I am a fan of, but it started, like, if you're playing up against Mike, if he had that Ymir, or if this Yamoja locks you down enough in the first 12 levels, I think it's worth having a conversation over.
Well, it's definitely not a terrible relic pickup because, like you just mentioned, that relic upgrade for the Phantom, 15% damage mitigation is nothing to scoff at,
it's a good
especially
number.
if you factor in the natural tankiness that this Tiamat already introduces to the Jade Dragons lineup. Definitely one of the more tanky mid laners as far as the Jade Dragons are concerned. And the Danzabaru as well. Seems as though Panda Cat doesn't really have too many concerns about the type of lockdown that the Oni Warriors have brought in with this Serket and Yamoja.
Yeah, and that's the thing, I think, that at least the control from the Warriors right now feels really solid. I mean, it's almost the same place we were in Game 2, where it's just your top 3 is so, well, at least good enough, feels good enough, that you should feasibly be able to find a lot of control, and it doesn't matter what your bottom 2 are.
And I'm looking at these picks and bans correctly, Gore, because I'm seeing a Sobek that's just completely out there in the open as a potential pickup here for Polar Bear Mike. And while Sobek, I guess, could struggle a little bit against the Emoja in terms of being locked out of an engagement, should Nilma find an excellent crushing wave, the thought of a Sobek is something that I think could create a lot of problems for the Serket initiation.
I mean, he has been one of the top bans for all of Phase 1. Like, all of this year, Sobek has been a huge threat. It seems like such a big miss to forget about.
Because I also think that Mike has obviously displayed an excellent Ares as well.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely believe that a Cripple could also be a really nice asset here, especially up against the likes of all the mobility that Kakolin, Serket, Yamoja are going to bring. And I think the split here for Jade Dragons as well on that decision would probably be just the fact that Sobek just feels a little bit more forgiving. Should you miss that pluck initially, you still have the lurking in the waters oftentimes to create enough space to bail yourself out. But Ares and Sobek, I think either of them would be excellent plug-and-play options for what the Jade Dragons have already opted for here. And this Bastet hover is It would certainly be a sight to behold, and it would not surprise me that of all people, it's Sam looking to flex the god pool between the Mulans and the Bastets.
You want to check? Did they accidentally kick Sam and grab Scream at some point? Like who are they pulling in to play this Bastet? Not something that we're used to seeing and have not seen. I think we got a couple games of it last year, and she looked really good as long as it was Scream playing her. I think a few other players were able to throw her out there, but I mean, there's not a whole ton that I think of when it comes to Bastet, but bleed damage, like her capabilities to burst people down and to absolutely demolish is highly capable, but it makes sense that she would get thrown out just because I guess her survivability and maybe setup potential is all around her own.
Well, it looks as though Jade Dragons are looking to make things as simple as possible for Sam here because the Awelish lock-in, that's what they found success with in Game 1. 3 different leaps for Sam to be able to prioritize, just naturally speaking. Kokola and Serket Yamoja might have to be a little bit more thoughtful in terms of when they're choosing to initiate. Could also see the Awelish just outright preventing Oni Warriors from looking for some of that early game aggression, or at least preventing them from wanting to opt for early blinks. I do feel as though beads are going to be a necessity for the solo laner and for the jungle. Yamoja a little bit more debatable, but that really just comes down to player preference in my mind. And Athena, arguably criminally underused right now.
Yes. Now, this is the thing that's weird. Like, Athena and Tiamat coming into this week, not including the games that we've watched this week, were tied for the #1 ban in Phase 1. Like, they've been the most banned gods. And then this week, it feels like she's just been, like you said, kind of criminally underused, thrown to the wayside, left and forgotten. We even focused on Sobek, and, like, theoretically, they were still a Sobek. Like, you had 2 top-tier support picks still left open for Mike. And I like the Athena here. I love what she can bring to a team fight. The taunt is something that I think is just so immeasurably good in terms of damage, not even damage, control that it brings to your team, but damage setup. Panda Cat, all of a sudden his life's a lot easier. Same thing for Sam. You had mentioned the synergy with the jumps, but now there's just a target for you right there. You get a Feather Step AoE, there's 3 people you can hit.
Very interesting pickup here from the Oni Warriors. That last mage lock-in going to be the Agni. And Agni, I believe this is his first SPL game at all throughout Split 1. And my concern here for the Agni is, yes, he has some space to look for good poke aggression against Tiamat during the laning phase, but when it comes to that team fighting portion, how do you keep the Agni alive against what the Jade Dragons have opted for?
Man, you're lucky that you have so much peel on your team, right? Like, that's, I think, where it comes down to. He's got his own dash and his own safety, that I guess, in that regard, and his self-peel, but, like, you are very happy to have Yamoja sustain, Serket to help peel for you, and Kakullan to help peel for you. I think in the team fights, it's still going to be difficult, but he has something, at least, to give him some measure. The problem I'm having is, like you said, for Pro League, he's been so devoid. Even last year, I think it was only, like, Wolfie, maybe a couple others who really liked picking him up occasionally. And that's where I've seen him this year, is the SCC. That's the only time, and Wolfie's the only one playing him. And I love his stuns, I like his damage, but when you're looking at this team, like, it almost feels like, even with Agni in the right build, Onher's the only one I see getting, like, the big amounts of damage out there in the middle of a team fight. Agni is good sustained damage throughout it all. He's not your typical, like, I guess, burst mage that comes through with Scylla and things like that. And he still has a lot to go for it, but I'm a little more concerned with the Tiamat than I am the Agni in this matchup.
Agni can feel impactful, though, around that objective play, because you do have those meteor bombs that are just going to be able to kind of prevent Jade Dragons from looking for an immediate collapse. You typically want to try and catch the Agni out as he's trying to dash away, and just forcing the dash would make things so much easier for Sam to look for some kind of punish with the Awelish. Jade Dragons, for what it's worth, though, it definitely seems as though they're going to try and prioritize those red buff invades, and so I do like the Agni in the sense that it'll be safe for Dardes to look for a counter secure should they get invaded, but from a distance.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest key, right? Agni can do everything he wants to without really having to get into your face. Maybe Flame Wave is slightly closer than you'd like to be, but even still, you're 10 steps away from somebody who needs to close the gap, so it makes it a little easier to disengage from your Awelish, your King Arthurs, your Tiamats, your Athenas, at least to make sure they have to close the gap. They have to chase you into what should be then a hell pit, considering the rest of the team.
Just from the 5v5 comparison, though, outright, Core, who would you say has probably come out with the leverage here in this last game?
Man, those top 4 picks are really good for the Warriors, but all 5 are so good for the Dragon. I think as long as, like, Sam even in game 1 when he played a wheelish the first time, wasn't really as clean as you would be used to from Sam, so maybe that's something that needs to be switched up, but from just the way they've played these gods in the past and where they sit in terms of like bans and priority, the Dragons came out on top. And it's just going to be the wild cards, right? Your Agni's performance, your Anher, and your Kakala, and like what those three can do for the Warriors opens up an absolute Pandora's box of chaos for them, or it absolutely guarantees them a loss. It's one of the two. I don't think there's a lot of middle ground. Maybe they can prolong the game, but it really does feel like the Dragons, at least at the beginning and throughout most of this game, should be able to control it because of the draft.
A lot of subconscious threat, though, for the Oni Warriors, at least coming out of this wheelish Athena. I'm thinking about the dive bomb combination.
Oh my God.
Should Oni Warriors be looking to try and disengage off of the Emoja portals? We all know how fast you can get away, but if there's an wheelish on the other side with a gravity surge waiting for that escape routine to take place, and then we could potentially see Polar Bear Mike following on top of that wheelish, could be a slam dunk combination of damage that the Oni Warriors do not want to experience on any of their carries. But game number 3, Gore, it's all down to the wire here for these two teams. Hinduman, I know you're excited for this one.
Than the last one with how long it took for him to do anything fun, but there was a lot of fun involved, Ryan, let's be honest, between these two. Taking a look at the standards of how these two teams are lining up for this one, though, I have a feeling Warriors kind of out pressure a little bit in a lot of these lanes.
Yeah, I like their fight. I mean, you've got Serket, which will throw the balance in your favor no matter where she goes. She's just so good in the early game at fighting. I think Agni can fight pretty well post-5. Pre-5, pretty weak, but so is Tiamat, so that's not too much of a concern for me. I'm just a little surprised, Hindu, that Neil gets this Yemoja again, because I thought he was really the unsung hero of game 2. He played really well.
Took a lot of damage
on this pick. Took a lot of damage, was able to sustain back a lot of that damage, set up, everything. He did it all on this pick. I'm surprised they let him have it.
Surprised to see it might go with the dash option at the beginning of this game. It doesn't provide a slow if you connect with it, but as you can see by the pressure of the level 2s coming through, Vote cannot find those basics at all, though. Mike just too wiggly to be able to get connected with. And Athena dropping down to last pick for the Dragons. What year is this again? What happened now?
Yeah, she just took a couple nerfs, and team started realizing maybe we don't need to permaban her. I do think she's still good in jungle right now, and support. I think she's fine in this spot, just not nearly as good as she used to be, which is probably a good thing.
Not a whole lot going on here, but the right-hand side, a bit of poke, I should say, on Vote there at the tail end of the right hand in that lane as the Anher and the Emoja fall back. Kuvo front of the jungle, though, in a bit of trouble from Sam, whose Feather Step has been utilized. Kuvo has to blink over the wall, no blink available for Sam, that I guess he used there just to initiate that situation. So blink for blink exchanged.
Good idea. You want to fight around this mid lane right now, pre-5, before this Agni can really turn and help you out. And Sam should win the 1v1 at level 2. Level 3, level 4 might be a different story, but should still be pretty close. Just a matter of if he can dodge out that Corpus Kiss.
I know Jerry picked some bans. There was a long hover over Aphrodite there as well from the Warriors. Do you feel, what would you reckon the reasons were they chose against that or decided to go this route instead?
It's a good question. I think that the reason that you wouldn't go Afro in this composition is that you just don't have a lot of consistent damage. You know, Serket, all in, single target melee range only. On her, pretty easy to just gun down. Who is going to do the vast majority of your damage? And Dardez has really stepped up in that regard lately to being that more traditional mage presence. So I like the idea to go away from the Afro. I would have liked it against Athena in general because you really take the risk out of getting multi-man taunted because you can always just use Undying Love. I think they would have been low on damage, though, and I think they make the right call.
I also thought, though, like with Dragon's composition, it made sense to me because of the poke option as well being like the focus of the Dragons. With a Tiamat, they won't have like nuke potential with double sustain, but blue buff on the right-hand side being invaded by Sam Fasaka's presence here with Fine OK now rotating in. Nika has to surrender that, and Fine OK is going to get a bit more greedy on that right-hand side and manage to steal away those Harpies.
Mike holds onto his hog as well, didn't use his Hand of the Gods right away, held it for the second buff secure and is able to do so, but Vote gets to go and solo his purple while Neil was making sure that the Dragons were a little bit uncomfortable on that side of the map. So that makes some sense. I think that I like the pressure from the Warriors right now. They don't, the Dragons don't know where Fred is, and so as soon as he shows up, they'll step up to clear the wave, but got zoned from a few minions in the meantime.
Yeah, definitely, especially knowing the right-hand side. I mean, you saw the same thing as soon as the Dragon stepped up there. The Warriors went, no, okay, we will back away too, because we don't actually know where Sam is either. On this right-hand side, fine, okay, hits level 5 first and returns some damage to Nika, but Nika did have beads there, and actually just in time, fine, okay, slips away from a bit more danger, as now Nika hits level 5 soon afterwards, and everything is calm as before.
This is just the type of early game that the Dragons want to just let Sam hit level 5 because he has so many priority targets that he can hit with this Gravity Surge. You don't have a ton of setup. It's really just Herwind and FineOK who can set you up, but you don't need that much setup. Neil's going to set himself up for you. Vote will do the same. Nika will do the same. Fred will do the same. All those characters have leaps that they will use, or self-knockups in the case of Yamoja, that can set themselves up for some good gravity surges on your side. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Sam head over to this right-hand side now that Nika had to use the beads because of FineOK's good pressure. Back, get your boots set up, and then maybe just be right on time for this blue buff. That's a good opportunity to use that gravity surge.
Around 700 gold lead for Dragons so far, even though no deaths in this one, but you can start to see where the leads are developing, mainly in the solo lane so far, with FineOK getting help from Sam for soccer, and Sam going to return to this side along with Polar Bear. Mikey blinks in early for step 2. The dunk just off the mark, and
nice.
Nika's well-timed ultimate there avoids the taunt that comes through, and Kuvo's still around here for the blue. Kuvo doesn't realize Mike's there, and Nika's still getting aggressed on by Sam, all the while FineOK clearing the wave, and Neil Ma arrives at the blue buff here to make sure it goes the way of Nika.
I think Nika played that as well as he possibly could have, not just with the ultimate for the CC immunity, but then to stick around and actually put pressure onto Sam and not be scared of being traded into allows him to buy space for Fred to actually be the one to do the blue buff for him. So Nika really, I think, continues his hot streak in playing very well.
Bit unfortunate as well with Sam next. I think Sam did a very good job of blinking when he realized the Athena was going to land too soon. But the feather step disjointed the Athena from landing on top of the target too, I feel like, there to make sure they got extra damage. Nika could have been in a bit more pressure in that situation if that damage would have come through, I feel like.
Yeah, I wonder if Fine could have let go of the wave a little bit earlier, not worried about clearing it, maybe gotten that stab so that you can get the stun or get in range for the knock-up. You know, maybe they could have done something a little bit better in order to get that kill, but instead of worrying about that, I'm just going to choose to think that Nika's a beast and that he played as well as he could have.
And that's how we should always do. Give credit to the player who survives because they're godlike.
That's right.
Not because of a mistake from the other team.
Because remember, Graham, no player has ever made a mistake. That's very important.
I've never seen one.
No, me neither.
In, what, how many years is it now? Season 8? Yeah.
Yeah,
Never.
Season 8.
Not one.
Well, you've been here for 35 years, so that
yeah,
that's a lot of Smite that you've watched.
Just rub that in, you know? Just rub it in some.
I don't mean on Earth, for the record. I don't mean that
No,
you've been
because I'm
on
older
Earth
than
for
that too.
35.
Yeah,
oh, I know. Yeah,
just
we
rub
know
that
that.
one in.
No,
Yeah.
it's just that you've been casting Smite for 35 years. Yeah.
It feels like it at times, specifically in Game 2 between Dragons and Warriors, where we watched them dance around with no split push options either because they nullified each other. But on the right-hand side now, FineOK still with a comfortable level lead. Got to be careful of Nika, who is going to transform soon. And no surprise to see Nika get aggressive. But the Athena! And Nika plays that pretty well yet again. He will get hit by the top, but FineOK was not interested in following up there whatsoever. He'd already backed away to the Scorpion. So timing of that, though, Ryan's important because the blue is just spawning again.
Yeah, that would have been a really nice combo of Fine connecting with that Excalibur's Wrath. Likely would have forced Nika's beads, and then Nika would have landed directly into Defender of Olympus damage. That would have been pretty nutty, actually. But at the end of the day, still ends up being a win for the Jade Dragons. FineOK is trading his very short cooldown ultimate in exchange for Nika's longer cooldown ultimate. And Mike is over here anyways because the blue buff's spawning. So it's not too much of a commitment from him. It's not like he's giving up farm elsewhere on the map. He's able to stay in a nice position on this Athena.
And Dragons are just continuing to extend their lead. More and more of these neutral camps I'm watching on the map go in the way of the Dragons too. Not only that blue buff on the right-hand side that's been invaded a couple of times now. Left-hand side been relatively unchecked between the two. I want to see this matchup play out, though, and Vote there. Didn't enjoy that. Rocket on Hoy, though, coming through from Panda, and the pillar helps out. Panda didn't find it, but in the jungle, the support's rotating into. Vote has no leap, remember, in this one. Good taunt from Mike to slow it down, but reinforcements on the way for the Dragons.
River's Rebuke is so good, though, from Neil. Keeps Vote alive, does good damage to Panda Cat. And that should be it, because look at this rotation coming from Fred and from Dardas.
Oh, they're going to actually try and pick Sam in the jungle instead. The stun cover will not connect. Didn't find the up down in time. The damage on Sam still pretty decent, though, to slow them down. Cuvo Fred, though, also under pressure from Hurrywin, who stepped on up. Sam trying to stay in the fray, looking for the pick on Cuvo Fred. Sam needs to watch out for Vote and Neil coming in. And Polar Bear Mike's trying to front line, but Dardas still gets credit for the kill. Mike now has to be careful, has his dash, though, to reposition. And First Blood goes the way of the Onis.
Sam was trying to get his blink off. He was trying to pre-auto, because remember, you can blink in the middle of your auto chain. That doesn't stop you. So he was trying to set up his big feather step auto on the blink, but then Dardas just auto attacked him and made sure that Sam couldn't do it. And then he's just kind of caught in this weird spot. I don't think he realized where Dardas was. Think that he might have just put the blink in the wall, and that's why he didn't go through. So he tries it again, and then it's still not working. And then it ends up being a First Blood. But to me, man, it's Neil on this Yemoja.
Yeah.
He saves Vote's life. He gets the setup onto Sam at the very end. Very surprised once again that it got let through for him.
Still looking for a cheeky steal away, but won't happen this time around, I don't think. Right inside, Final K getting aggressive 2v1. Looking to pressure that blue buff again. Picks up Cuvo and dunks him back down. Cuvo still pressured enough to force the ambush, but now Final K's got the Athena roll from Mike coming in. As Sam for Soccer arrives on the scene too. Cuvo's still alive, but not for long. Nika trying to at least make it a 1-for-1. Forces everyone away. Mike getting low, but so is Nika. And he's going to be careful of that stab that just came through at Final K at the end there. Nice pickup, a response from Dragons on this right-hand side.
Poor Fred just got the treatment there, man. I mean, all three members just solely focused on him, and Nika did as much as he possibly could have in that moment, but just not quite enough. The three-man knockup was beautiful underneath the tower, but Tank Boots Gaius, King Arthur, man, it lets you get away with a lot of stuff that you really probably shouldn't be allowed to get away with.
Nope. I agree. But I like Soda Gaia, that's all I'm saying. Leave it for supports, right? Just don't want Soda.
Yeah, we see it bought by supports all the time.
Not
Andy,
anymore.
Man, for sure.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
It was great.
It's being abused by these solo laners, man.
Everything gets abused by solo laners. That's why supports get nothing.
Supports get nothing. Junglers get nothing because it gets abused by solo laners.
Do you remember when Watcher's GIF used to be good and then we nerfed it to the ground because
well, yeah,
of solo laners getting it?
No. Oh, you mean years ago? Yeah. That was OP.
Missed those days.
I don't.
No, I can imagine not. Still tied up in this one, though, and I'm actually interested in the Agony pickup for another reason here, too. It's something that I'm looking at Warriors Squad, and I've been talking a lot this year about engagements under Phoenixes or initiations of fights. It's very telegraphed from the side of Warriors if you've only got Nika and Cuvo Fred trying to jump in, or, you know, the Riptide jump in, so to speak, from Neil Mar. With Agony, you do have this huge AoE stun that it is very easy to set up to reposition the stun ability of that with that absolute usefulness of the Noxious Fumes to make sure you hit 1-2 targets if they're clumped.
Agreed. That's Agony's greatest strength, is that he can be an initiator for you as a mid lane mage while still providing a lot of damage and not putting himself too far out of position. I mean, you're certainly within blink range, but ideally on a Phoenix you're able to keep those people in combat and just use that as your ranged initiation. So we'll see how well Dardas can utilize that stun moving forward. Missed the one off of the last breath on Sam. Ended up being the First Blood anyways, so it didn't end up mattering too much, but certainly want to see him clean that up.
Final K slowly but surely winning this lane thanks to the support he's got from his teammates now. Blue buff stripped away again. That level lead, an important one as it is the secondary relic online. And already Sam's on adventure again. No blue buff up, so Nika probably feels a bit safer this time round. Has his ultimate available still and the beads, so they won't necessarily get a whole lot here unless Nika really tumbles. A lot of pressure onto him, especially with Athena coming through. Nika trying to get some separation. The damage from Sam is causing a lot of problems, and the tankiness of Final K just means he can continue to wear him down. And Polar Bear Mike will get the credit for the kill, but 3 men to the right-hand side means a Gold Fury attempt open up for the Warriors. Not a whole lot these two can do about this, in my opinion.
Don't think so. I mean, no Chiron ultimate for Panicat this time around. It is taking some time, but I think that the Dragons are willing to trade this out for the Pyromancer on the right.
Yeah, just a lot of Pyro's gone down, but that's good work, I guess, from the Dragons of Horrywin specifically. They're just buying enough time to make sure that Pyro goes uncontested. 2 overall Tier 1 falls. Pyro falls for a Gold Fury. Evens.
I like Dragons on that. Yeah, you get 2 assists as well as the kill on the right-hand side. That extra gold matters. You get the Pyromancer, you get the Tier 1 tower. This frees Final K up for these rotations, and who is going to be able to kill Final K at this point in his build? He's level 13, far enough ahead of Fred in particular that I don't think it's going to be too easy for them to track him down.
I'll be honest, the only thing I was rooting for today was Nika and Final K to not do what they were talking about in tweets before this set.
Yes.
Which was Sobek versus Terra.
Look, man, neither of them want to be playing. Well, maybe Terra. Maybe they might find Terra fun. But I know for a fact that neither one of those guys want to be playing Sobek. It wouldn't even be their fault if they locked it in.
It scared me, just so you know.
I know. They were, look, I would argue that's threatening violence on us, the casters.
It is.
We should probably have Coop have a talk with them, because that is not acceptable in my mind.
No, and listen, especially if you're not going to follow through with it too, right? You've got to do it at that point. Left-hand side, you can see Sam hanging around here looking for a bit of a tricky play on Vote. Vote seems to have sniffed some danger, though, just did his scorpion hung back. So Sam will have to relieve the pressure, get the purple buff over to Panda Cat, who has got about a level and about a half lead, I'd say, at the moment. Just that wave, it looks like it is only 14 to 13 for now. But I think there's a little bit more than that in that. You can see Neil on this left-hand side, just helping out with the purple as well. Farming continues between the teams.
And it ends up being another Ankh. I was curious what Mike was going to pick up at level 12. I think they really missed having his Frenzy in the last game. And he doesn't go Frenzy this time. He goes again with the Ankh this time around, really trying to use this as the negation tool up against this Yemoja in these team fights. But don't think it really did quite enough, in my opinion, last game. I mean, it's so hard to say, right? Because you don't get to see the numbers.
Yeah.
Of the healing that it's reducing. But it still felt to me like that Yemoja was pretty useful through that Ankh. Maybe it means that you still really need it, because if you didn't have it, then it would have been impossible to deal with.
Love that play from the Dragons there, though. Look at Fine OK. Because of the pressure he developed on solo lane, he's not slowing down. He's rotating to mid, trying to wrap around the back and keep the Warriors pinned back behind the tier 1. As soon as they step up, Athena's waiting for a taunt too. And Dragons are smelling blood on this tier 1 tower. It's even forcing Vote now to join this fray. Nika coming in through the mid lane too. This could be a big fight.
Nice stun coming from Dardes, but Fine OK's in.
And Dardes dashes away. Rivers Rebuke off the mark from Neil there, as Fine does get some separation from the team. Tier 1 still alive. Nothing really happens yet, but Jade Dragons haven't given up the pressure just yet.
No.
They're feeling confident here.
They should, because Rivers Rebuke is the main threat that they have to deal with, and I think Fine really played around it well. Faked that he was going to full-on commit, made Neil think that he was going to full-on commit, and then instantly started to spin out of that danger, forces the Rivers Rebuke out, and that cooldown so impactful for the Warriors. As soon as it's down, that tier 1 tower is free.
Vote was thinking about, I think I can go to lane now. Wait, I just saw the Athena. Guys, can I get some help over here? And he's getting it. The bad news is, full minion wave under this tier 1, and Panda gets a bit of free time there due to the worry that Vote had of the gank attempt that could have been available. So another tier 1 for the Dragons. They're picking them apart so far, the Dragons here.
Very similar to what we saw in the first 2 games of this series, but of course it wasn't enough in game number 2. They're going to need to do a little bit more come the team fighting stage, but I like their odds based on these leads that they have in these side lanes. Fine OK had a big lead last game on the Tsukiyomi, but there's a difference between a lead on a Tsukiyomi and a lead on a King Arthur. You're going to get a lot more space created on this Arthur. Sam has a pretty big lead. He's up about a level and a half over Fred, who just now hit level 14. I think the Dragons have put themselves in a pretty good spot to win the set.
Yeah, looking comfortable for now. The next Fury spawn, though, we'll see how this one plays out. Oni Fury as well. We've already down to tier 2 towers for the Warriors. Would be a big one for them to get here. And in terms of secure, I'm favouring Agni out of a lot of the characters in this game, if I'm honest. But you've got to be in the right position to do so.
Yeah, I just don't love any of the secure on either side. You're not feeling
if
really
you've got to
good.
pick,
yeah,
it's probably an Agni Bomb. Yeah?
I guess it's like Agni Bomb over Path of Flames that secures the best, but you're just really looking to take fights, specifically the Jade Dragons, because they have such great CC.
Yep.
They can really easily waterfall team fights. Just taunt this guy, get his beads, we reset, do it again, and kill him. That should be the game plan for them.
Still a pinch in terms of this left-hand side coming through, looking at Vote, but Neil was around here too. And you can see that rocket coming around the back from Panda. But look at Sam, his health bar's too low. Vote gets a 1v1, he knew Panda was coming, and Panda's now got PBM on the way.
Good damage coming from Heroin, but Rivers Rebuke separates Vote yet again. Aegis gonna buy him time to jump away as well. Mike's ultimate just on the wrong target. He went on Panda Cat. It was really Sam that needed it. Great play from Vote to turn that kill around.
Yeah, really good word, but also more importantly, like, I guess the best thing he's doing is buying time for his team to get in position every time.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like he's leaping early now and again, but teammates are around to support him and allow him to survive. Now it's Dragons trying to reinvest something. Looking at these Harpies in mid at least to find a counterplay. Sam did invest the blink, the beads. Not his ultimate, though, on that left-hand side, and giving that Vote a kill will give him more confidence and some of that experience back that he needed. But Mike's in trouble.
Gonna get last breath
CC
knocked
chain!
up. Great chain, and Mike is toast.
No way of getting away from that. Fantastic follow-up from Darden's is stunned, then into Vote's knock-up too. And Fury now pulled. Fine, okay, in the front line up against Nika. Nika still has the transformation available, very close to it. Fury getting relatively low. Reset again by the Warriors here. Don't feel good about the fact that Sam's back into the fray again. And they know he's got his ultimate available, so Warriors fall back.
Still get the free pick onto Mike. I mean, you only use a couple of ultimates in order to do it. And it's about that momentum, I think, for the Warriors.
Yeah.
And this is much better from them than what we saw in Game 1, where they just didn't feel like they were doing a whole lot proactively. Now they're being a little bit more proactive. And whether or not it ends up netting them an Oni Fury in that instance, I like them being aggressive more than just waiting for the Dragons to make a mistake.
You did see the you did see the Warriors step up to the Fury there for a second, but they were worried about the Athena ultimate coming through, which has just come up now. But a double stun! And another stun! And Pandacat ate a ton of damage, but the Desert Fury didn't do enough to kill off Sam. Fine, okay over here now. And already Warriors feel a bit more confident, knowing the health bar's a little bit whittled there, specifically Sam for Soccer. They may look to make attention towards the Fury one more time now.
Man, such a sick stun from Dardes, and
Yeah.
Neil's right there on time, has his stun primed and ready to go. Don't know if that's going to be enough to earn this Fury for free, though. I mean, the Dragons still, they are very mobile. Sam on Suku does not take him long to get back into the fray.
Got to look at Nika for a blink initiation. He'll be looking for Hurrywin before Sam can get back in. Or Pandacat on this Dansborough, which still has the ultimate available too. Pressure relief for a moment, though, as Dragons push on in. Warriors fall back.
Sam's beads are coming back up, so he's allowed to play a little bit more aggressively. Pandas has his relics on cooldown, and that's going to be the one to really watch out for. I'm assuming that they won't take any fight with his beads down, and they certainly won't. Aegis is 2 minutes from now, so you're looking at a pretty long period of time where that Danzaburo gets a little bit more vulnerable. And this is the first time that I feel like Panda's played this Danza and hasn't absolutely rolled the lane.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
he has really dominated his lane basically every time he's locked in this pick. How does it fare from not ahead? Not behind, but
even.
Not from a but from an even.
Taunt connects. Neil half health there thanks to the follow from Hurrywin. Fine, okay, still giving chase. Gets the ultimate off. Won't be enough to secure a kill just yet. Follow-up damage needed. The stun from Dardes didn't really do anything to Fine at all there. As Fine still trying to whittle down the health bar, making it 1-for-1 at least. As the Desert Fury comes through, Fine will escape, but Nika giving chase, as is the Circuit. Nika gets the kill. The pushback from Nika onto Pandacat stops him from getting some damage out. Sam with the carries in the backside. Athena coming through as well. Polar Bear Mike jumped into a dangerous spot there he didn't really want to be in. As they fall back, it's only Fine okay that falls.
And remember, Neil was allowed to have Umoja this game. That was an active choice the Jade Dragons made. Sam got the Athena ult, but still wasn't able to take him down. Got enough space, and look, the Oni Fury goes down in their favor. I'm just saying that no other support in the game lives in that instance.
I think the one difference there is, like you said, they get a Fury on that left-hand side. That's just a really good play from Dragon to be like, if we take a fight and we lose it, we're falling back towards the Fury still.
Right.
We have an opportunity to take it, whereas the Warriors, who won the engagement technically with a man advantage, weren't in a position to do anything other than not follow the Dragons into the jungle.
And it's just a credit to that taunt coming in from Mike and the Sunder as well. Neil just did not respect the damage coming from Hurrowwind, who did it over the wall. It's hard to see coming. It's very, very good style of composition where it's just Athena taunt, and then Hurry has this massive damage he can put out. Not very often that Tiamat's able to pump all of those shots into one person, but Athena taunt makes that a lot easier, and you can see how much damage it can really do.
It feels like it's easier on paper to hit all those shots on Tiamat, but when you come to doing it,
it's impossible.
The difference of the movement of an enemy is just very, very tricky.
Here's the reality. If I'm ever playing against a Tiamat and she freehand hits me with every shot of the one, I'm instantly reporting her for hacking.
Okay.
It's not possible, man. It's too hard to track that well. Unless Shroud is loaded into Smite, which she should, by the way, then it's not happening.
That's true. Nika dashes away from Polar Bear Mike, who dashes on in, and that's one thing I was liking to see a bit more out of Mike so far this game. He's been kind of quiet with it. He's been prematurely holding the ability to dash on in. I'd like to see him just go for taunts a little bit more often. See if he can force the beads, a panic beads, you know, of like, oh no, I don't know where everybody is, but look at this. Dragon's just feeling comfortable for a second, like, yo, last fight went okay, let's pull fire. Let's bring him into us. They can't turn another tier 2 anymore.
But Fred is around the back, and that does enough to really dissuade
Oh,
them. But, let's
yeah,
just kill that guy.
Forces the beads and forces the ambush over the wall with him out of the fray. Firegen could be looked at again. Health bars of Dragons healthy enough to go one more time if they want to. Fine, okay, will initiate.
I like it. Go back to it. Neil's beads just now coming back up, so that's not necessarily the target they want to be hitting, but can at least force the beast.
Stun over the wall from Dardes, drops some decent damage and slows down Fine OK and Polar Bear Mike from All In and Neil Mar there too. Nika meanwhile has kept Panda Cat and Sam for Sakura Bay. Cubo gets hold of Hurrywin with the ultimate there on the tail end as we get a pause in the engagement between the two. This is still anyone's team fight right now.
Yeah, that Yamoja being forced out, though, is a big deal on that right-hand side. Neil doesn't have a lot of Omi left over, and River's Rebuke is already down. Those are the really big cooldowns you've got to worry about, is how much Omi she has and River's Rebuke. And the fact that both of those are down makes me feel like the Dragon should be favored in this fight.
I look at the Circuit ultimate that just came through there too. It doesn't look like Hurrywin's really in too much danger just yet. At
This
least
is like
from
a
the
fun
poison.
content thing. We should do this.
What happens next?
Yeah, exactly.
I thought about this
Predict-
of like taking
predict
old
the
games
teams fight.
and
Yeah.
go, what happens next, right?
Yeah, that's a good idea. But we should. I wonder how many I would remember if we were doing like old games. It would have to be
That's
games
part
I
of the fun.
didn't oh yeah, that's true. I'd be like, I wonder if I could remember what happens. In
My
those, but-
memory is dead now. It's over with. There's been too many
Yes,
games.
yeah.
They all just like convulse into one.
Just do like an SEC game, and I'll never remember what happened. That's the real secret.
But that's where all the craziness happens too.
That's
so if
true.
you've not checked
Those
out
are
the SEC,
impossible to predict.
you
Yeah,
just
there's
never
no
know.
shot.
Sylvanas jungle the other week as well. We've seen all sorts of different things. Always will do. This break won't take too long, just so you know. Is just a quick pause between them. If you're worried about combat pausing and stuff like that, don't be stupid. Head over to the SMITE Esports website as well. There's an opportunity where players can pause because we understand the technicalities of it, and the players are all on board too. So don't worry about that. But we are back in game, I believe. Here we go. And what happened in the fight? Everyone ran away, which is nice.
Everyone ran away, and not a whole lot of relics were used on the Jade Dragon side, where Fred's relics are still down, and Neil's beads and Sunder still on cooldown.
But the Dragon's still happy to attempt the Fire Giant one more time. Hurrywind in a pretty decent position right now. Sam's still hanging around. No gravity surge up for him, but he does have that blink available, more importantly. Darda's doing a very good job of his position, I feel like, to support his frontliners and just find some of these stuns, like a Mike there, and just whittle down these health bars every fight.
Fire Giant's still above half. I mean, Panda Cat just doesn't have the damage to really put threat on this objective quite yet. He hasn't upgraded that Bluestone, isn't going the crit route, so that means that you can't really burn that Fire Giant too quickly. I like the Warriors maybe even picking it up.
Well, health bars for Warriors looking very good now. Great Riptide going to force a couple of Dragons there to scatter to the wayside. Fire Giant still getting lower from Vote, dealing the damage to it. Taking time as Nika front lines onto Fine OK and Mike too. But Dragons are back. Panda Cat is here. And the Fire Giant's still leashed.
Dardes has to beads. Fine OK's in, but he's low. Look at Sam on the flank.
Looking for the flank round the back with a blink. Gets the feather step onto two. Dardes and Vote still alive though. And Neil Moore with some sustain will help them out. Sam very low. Keep on looking. But great from Mike. But the Fire Giant came up big. He chose the Warriors for that one. Cubo gets the poison
clean
to spread. And that's another potential kill there as well. Hurrywin now trapped in the River's Rebuke. The Aegis buys him a moment as he falls down for a double kill the way of Vote. Fire Giant decided the Warriors are here to claim.
Man, so unlucky there for Sam. Just a great play from Mike. He had his back with the taunt, but then Sam's got to juke back. He doesn't know that that's coming in, and Fire Giant decides that he doesn't like that guy in particular. That kills Sam, and it also groups up the Jade Dragons. It groups them up to try and peel for Sam, and that lets a really great taunt go through from Cubo Fred. One of the, probably his best mechanical play he's made so far in Season 8, because he has really struggled. But he is on point with that Circuit taunt, gets in there, gets it to spread, and is able to create enough space for the Warriors.
Incredible. It's true as well. I mean, didn't have beads in that engagement either. So after the taunt goes through from Mike that saves Sam for a second, Cubo's then not able to turn around and go, okay, now I can deal with the rest of the backline and cause some real problems for them. 7-2 for the Warriors. Fire Giant around all their wastes right now. Primal Fury soon to spawn. Lot of towers on the side of Dragons, however. So yes, the global gold can go up in favor of Warriors right now, but they've still got a bit of work to do, I feel like, to get a Phoenix and win the game.
Just think that it's going to be difficult now with this extra sustain. I mean, you've got the Ankh. It wasn't used in that fight because it was on cooldown. It was coming back up. And you've got the Divine Ruin. You've got a Pestilence. All of this anti-heal is here for the Jade Dragons, but Neil has just been able to be too impactful despite all of that. Darda has been able to find these great walls. Nika's been able to survive on really deep dives into the enemy backline. And the way that Vote and Darda have appealed for one another on the backline has been excellent as well. Sam got into the back there and did a ton of damage on that Awilix, but was just short of killing both. and they were able to put out enough damage to send him back.
What a turnaround for the Warriors with how this season's been going for them so far. A lot of troubles with getting their communication and team play together, and obviously a couple of ping concerns from too, but they're giving it as good as they get against the Dragons here. And now it's Dragons on the back foot. Sam gets it to him. You want him to keep going?
Yeah,
he
keep
is.
going.
He was
yeah,
late, though.
He puts a lot of threat on this Phoenix because he's got a big wave. He's got
it, yeah.
Tiamat minions, and with Gravity Surge, that's a massive power and attack speed stim. This buys you time. Yeah, I like the idea. Just keep it pushing that out, force Nika to back. Warriors likely weren't going to be going for a Phoenix at that point anyways, but if they do, if they make the mistake of going towards the Phoenix, I think Sam could have taken that right side Phoenix. So a good idea to keep the pressure off of their own side of the map.
Well, the pressure's mounted onto the Dragons now with only a tier 2 tower remaining on that right-hand side for them. It's Phoenix line only, and the Fire Giant buff still available and on them for about another minute and a half here. There is a chance for Warriors to siege a Phoenix if they want.
Certainly could, but they don't have a lot of time. A minute and a half is really only a couple waves when you're this far away from the Phoenix. It looks to me like they're just going to try and take that right side tier 2 and then set up for Fire Giant. And normally in close games, when you get fire, it's not about winning the game. It's about setting yourself up to guarantee the next fire, which is then going to win you the game. And I don't think just getting the tier 2s and a Fury is enough to guarantee the next Fire Giant for the Warriors. I don't think it's quite enough.
And you can see the way Dragons are playing this here. They're trying to find a pick in the jungle potentially, but they'll take the consolation prize of a red buff away from that Agony in the mid lane. But if they do find someone sleeping in the jungle here, it kind of frees them up from worrying about even a potential of a Phoenix Siege available. Tier 2 on the right finally does fall down, and as you expected, Warriors do fall back into the jungle to set up for the next Fire Giant fight. And it was Dragons that started the Fire Giant, then there was a fight, then it was Warriors that started the Fire Giant, then there was a fight, and then Warriors get it. Pyromancer now going to fall here too. Anyone's game.
Very, very even at this point. You really have to utilize these Tiamat minions. Whirlwind is constantly spawning them on that left-hand side. You want to use those to put pressure on that tier 2 on the left. And maybe that's enough to get you extra ward vision on this right-hand side as the Jade Dragons. Forcing someone over to the left might buy you enough space in order to get that aggressive ward vision here on the right.
Kivo doing a good job right now, just pressuring this left-hand side, as we were saying, before the Fire Giant spawns, so you don't have to worry about the too much pressure onto the Phoenix line. Sure, there's a tier 2 standing, but we mentioned the Tiamat minions are available in that lane too. Magi's Cloak, though, more complete for Kivo now, and that's one of the things I wanted to bring up of why he was doing it. That will help him in these engagements. A lot of CC on the side of the Dragons. If he can just absorb a taunt and keep those beads up, that'll be very helpful.
And he's got Protector of the Jungle now, so he is going to be extra tanky, 12% more tanky in fact, and do 12% more damage in the jungle. And when this next fight is likely to decide the game, and it's going to be taking place in the jungle, I like that pickup quite a bit. I like where Fred is in the build. He's got enough damage. He's got enough tankiness. That Magi's now means that he can get hit by an Athena taunt and not have to beads and immediately disengage. It lets you still engage after the fact. Curious to see how the Dragons are going to play it. Do they want to just try and keep this train going of we're going to taunt in Neil and try and kill him? Because he's been able to survive on his last leg the last few times, but Whirlwind has just finished off Rod of Tahuti, which is the big purchase for him. Now he's got 10% extra pen, more damage against low health targets. I don't know if they've got the damage to kill Neil, but I got a feeling they're going to try.
Dragons have sat back quite a bit on this right-hand side here, but Enhanced Fire Giant now online. Look at that left-hand side, Ryan. Oof, that's a lot of pressure. It's only a tier 2, though, so I don't think you're going to be upset yet, but you're going to have to send someone back eventually. Maybe you take a fight. Whoever gets low goes back, defends this from a Phoenix push.
Yeah, could be.
Is that the play?
Could be. I mean, Whirlwind also has minions coming up mid as well, so you're going to have someone have to come back and defend these eventually.
Enhanced Fire Giant has been started up by the Warriors, looking to try and burn it down, force the Dragons to engage sooner before these minions make an impact. That tier 2 is falling soon, though. Dawn is in the jungle with Cubo. Fred looking at Sam for Soccer, gets the beads out of Sam for Soccer, and the ultimate for Cubo, though, was the trade-off there. Fine, okay, zones away the rest of the team. Ult for ult expended, at least for a second, because Whirlwind will be back up soon.
Yeah, Hurry's just probably going to be using his for minions more than likely in the foreseeable future, so that's a fine trade.
Mike taunts on in, pulsed back by Vote, and that Impale. Fine, okay, traps in the River's Rebuke, looking for an escape path, and all the while, Cubo and Nika zoning away Whirlwind and Sam to the best of their ability. Nika repositioned back to his team. Well done from him, because he was about to get pincered from all angles, but look at that left-hand side Phoenix, Ryan. Yep. It's being beaten up by the minions, and someone's going to base. Nika's going to, as Cubo's Magi's is down.
Mike didn't see him. I think Mike was going to throw the reach out and stop that back from coming through, but it's enough. But there really isn't that much more threat. Your minions will push out from this position, and there's no minions coming from Hurriwind. Hurry would like to be able to sneak away and start putting minions in the jungle far enough to the left-hand side in order to keep it going.
Do you send him now? Maybe now's the time to do it.
No.
It looks like he's going to go right and drop him by the looks of it.
I think that you want to just keep them pushing in mid. I mean, until it's time for him to reset, I think that you would like to be able to have him go back to base, immediately put a portal down, buy his wards, slow push up mid, then sneak back over to the left, drop a second portal, and then come over to this right-hand side. But that's a significant time commitment if he wants to get 2 portals down. And with the changes to the Tiamat minions, 1 portal isn't enough in order to get a Phoenix anymore. You really need 2 or 3 that go unanswered in order to get a Phoenix uncontested. And it looks like Hurry only dropped 1. Yeah, he dropped 1 by his Titan room that's going to push up that left-hand side. That's really not enough to put significant threat on the Phoenix, especially with how big of a wave is being built by the Warrior side of the map. I don't think that 1 wave of minions is going to do enough.
Dragons will be looking to buy a bit of time, though, because the relic situation's a bit worse for wear for them rather than the Warriors here, specifically Panda Cat. No beads, no Aegis, no beads available for Hurriwind either. Nika's the real danger man you're going to watch out for this game, but he's not got beads or blink either, which means it's going to be very much a manual engage, so keep an eye on him as fine. Okay, needs a bit of damage on the front line, not back into danger by Neil, but Vote and Dodders were not ready for it. Cuvo still hovering around this mid lane area, and those minions are working their way up.
Yeah, but they're basically gone. Those Tiamat minions are gone. Like I said, one portal is not enough to really put threat on a big wave anymore. One thing I've noticed about the Dragons in this set in general is that they've been Hurriwind and Panda have been getting hit by the same initiations too often. Right there was a massive blink knockup from Nika. You can't let him hit both. They've got to space better in the back line in order to peel for one another more safely.
Fine, okay, still front lining to the best of his ability. Eats a bit of damage. Good Riptide there. Forces Mike into taunt Neil, and Neil going to drop a River's Rebuke on fine as well. But look at Sam for Socket to the back line. Looking at Vote. Can't get enough damage off, but Neil's very low. Cuvo trying to right around the back for the damage if he can find it. Nika front lining well. Gets hit by the taunt. Damage output, and Hurriwind needs to watch his back.
Oh, no, Fred!
He missed both kisses onto him. Could have been a double kill instead. It's lackluster onto Fine, okay, who's still under pressure with Nika rotating in. The fallback has to happen from the Warriors here. That could have been disaster for the Dragons, but just bad luck. That's all he can say.
Yeah, I don't know if it's bad luck, Andy, man. I think you got to hit the Cobra's Kiss when neither player is looking at you, man. That is tough there for Fred. And look, the reality of the situation is both Hurry and Panda Cat had beads. He's not going to insta-kill one of them. But boy, would it be nice to have neither backliner have beads coming to this next fight.
It would have made the Dragons panic a little bit more in that, but they're not done just yet. Beads available again for Hurriwind though in the mid lane. Still both relics up from Panda. Torn out to Neil Moore. Pressure on Neil is hurting him well, but the bombs from Agony are forcing him back, and Mike is now stunned. Has to reset and dash away. Can't get the dash off because of the Riptide. Trying to keep resetting this Athena dash where possible. Cubo for him back in the fray. Doesn't have a Sam Pisaka behind him. River's Rebuke on 4 though, and Final Key does a good job of zoning Vote. Sam's looking for Vote. Sam's still going in on Vote on the backside, but Sam is losing that trade. Or is he? He gets the kill onto Vote and does escape. Fine, okay there to help Cuvo. Looking to clean this one up, though, to make it a 1-for-1. At least in that engage, as Panda's already dead, remember. Fine, okay, doing what he can to survive and gets a good ult off to buy time. Hurriwind comes leaping on in.
He's got a knock-up, doesn't find a whole lot, but it's Mike's job now to try and solo out Dardes. Not enough damage for him, and Fine falling lower. But we're going to have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, we did that on purpose, just to
make
sure you
that's
all
a cliffhanger.
Okay, so what happens now?
Oh, well, I think I'm seeing what happened on these other monitor. Fred finds Fine okay, and Hurriwind on the run, but back in that mage stance, puts out good damage onto Fred. In fact, he finds him.
Mike and Hurriwind left alive. Hurriwind still trying to survive in this one, further back than where Mike is at the moment, but the health bar is very low. Mike looking for a taunt if he can find one. Gets it onto Neil. Neil has to beads away. Nika's still frontline in there. And at the moment, it's only these 5 players alive. Neither team can end off this.
No, neither team can
get the fire
end.
giant.
Neither team can get fire. Neither team can get an objective.
Oh.
That's just the way it is for the time being. And what a great fight from PBM and Hurry to be able to stand up and keep that fight going in their favor. Good communication between the two and good aggressiveness from Hurriwind. But it's Neil again, man. Neil finds another great Rivers Rebuke, and Fred that time does not miss. He jumps in, finds Panda Cat with the CC chain, is able to get him down and kill him. And you see the weakness of this Danza Burrow. He does not have that mobility Panda was in trying to get damage off on Neil after Mike taunted him in, gets hit by a bomb stun, then gets hit by another bomb, then gets Rivers rebuked. It was just all about this Yamoja play from Neil, 0-0-8. But I think it's had a massive impact.
That's a big window on the left-hand side for that Oni Fury. A big Fury there for the Warriors too, thinking about it, because that will answer some of the potential push from a Tiamat here.
No beads.
Neil, no beads for Neil this time. He's going to need some help soon and won't get it. Hurrywin credit with a kill, but Dodd his bombs rain down on Panda. Panda half health there as Sam getting aggressive with the support for Fina. Nika took a lot of damage there, but will leap away. Kivo resetting, find okay in mid. Wrapping round as Nika taunted into danger again. Still had a dash to reset one more time. Kivo trying to give him some help where he can. Nika will fall, but the poison may get leashed onto Sam. Won't have to follow up for the kill though. This is Jade Dragons brutalizing down with the rocket coming in from Panda 2. The Phoenix under potential threat here until the Dragons turn around looking for the potential fire giant.
Should be fire. I mean, their relics are coming back up on the backliners. Hurrowin just used his Aegis, but still has the beads coming up now. These waves are pushed in the Dragons' favor. They don't have to worry about an Oni wave taking a Phoenix uncontested. In his 5v3, I don't think I'm keen on defending here if I'm the Warriors. I'm surprised at how far up they're walking.
They've got beads though on Panda and Hurrywin, and that's the big thing against Dardes here. This CC is the issue. Torn onto Cubo Fred, but he has the Magi's cloak to stay alive, and the bombs rain down and hurt Mike pretty intensely. You can see them thinking about what they want to do here, Dragons. They started the fire, gonna reset to Pyro as Sam comes back in, but they don't feel confident about that FG.
Yeah, I just don't like that call, Hindu. I mean, the relics are all up for Dardes and for Vote. You're not going to be able to spring a trap and insta-kill them. Oh. And now you pull it now, but at this point they've gotten a chance to get all their buttons back up. Nika just spawned. Neil is going to be here by now. I don't think that this is a good call from the Dragons.
And as soon as Fine OK steps up there, you see the Fire Giant reset. Sam falls back, Hurrywin falls back. And Warriors have a power play opportunity if they realize it. Neil leashes the FG again here, so they could look for it. But the good news is this minion is going to give vision to the Dragons and be like, wait, we can't base. We may have to fight.
Cubo's looking to cut off Sam in
Good
mid,
talk.
but look at this turnaround. Look at where Sam's coming from.
Sam's wrapping around the back, but Neil did have to drop the Rivers Rebuke. Fire Giant's getting very low at the same
Nice
time.
impale.
What happens with the Fire Giant's more important. Warriors get it, and Fine OK very low. Dardas and Vote working together as a unit. In goes Sam for Soccer though, looking for some of the Riptides, causing confusion in the fight. Enough for Hurrywin to kill Neil Moore. Meanwhile, on the right hand side, Dardas made that to Sam this game.
What?
No, Fox saves the day, and he will stay alive.
And he's out. I don't think Mike's going to be able to kill him. That is massive. Who left? Fine OK had someone next to him, and they go, all right, you got that one, bro. I'm going to go help out over here. But then Fine OK just doesn't quite get the damage. Shout-outs to Lifesteal Boots there for Dardes, because I think that bought him enough time to get his button up for Soul Gem to come through. That Lifesteal from the purple boots and from the Soul Gem are ultimately enough in order for him to get the next button off and get the Soul Gem proc in order to live.
So he's dashed there, and I believe he gets
It's
a Soul
Mike,
Gem proc
yeah,
there
right
off the
there.
Flame Wave just at the tail end.
And the minion dies at the perfect time for
Yeah.
him, too. The Tiamat minion ends up timing and not getting the
Madness.
kill. That is absolutely wild that Dardes survives. It ends up being a massive deal, by the way.
Well, I was going to say, because as we went to that replay there, Dardes was going through a decision in his mind where to go. He bought Bancroft's off his boots.
Yep.
Sold it.
Yep.
Got Talaria boots.
No.
Sold it.
Yeah.
Got Typhon's Fang.
Yeah, Typhon's is an interesting one. It just tells me that he wants more pen and that he really appreciates the lifesteal that he just got.
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
Because he really wants it, I guess. I mean, I'm surprised that it isn't Rod of Tahuti. Rod's so good on this character. I mean, it's good on every mage, to be honest with you. It's just really solid. But I guess that sustain is enough to tempt Dardes away from the typical pickup while still wanting that penetration.
This makes it a very interesting endeavor if Warriors win this too. I mean, we're talking about the top three in the groups going through. Solar Scarabs still have to play in this group tomorrow, and their matchup makes it a little bit simplified for them of just beat the Kings to go through.
Right.
Instead of having to worry about tiebreakers and like 2-1 scorelines plus minus. This would be big for the Scarabs fans if the Warriors can find the win here, but more importantly for the Warriors.
Yep.
This is a big scalp to take with how their season's been so far.
Would give them a much better seed heading into the playoffs, and that's exactly what they need because you know that they know that they've been struggling as well. It's certainly been no secret. But this would be a huge win for them, just to gain that momentum going into playoffs.
Donna's got to be careful, though, because he's got no beads right now. Nika goes in on Panda Cat, gets the pressure rolling straight away. Nika drops to half health thanks to the Phoenix, but the Phoenix is already dead thanks to the enhanced fire giant. Everyone running away, but Polar Bear Mike and Samuel, none of that. They're trying to force an engagement again. Tiamat's Tornado chasing. Won't be enough to deter the Warriors just yet. Kuvo smells blood for a second there. Heads into the jungle, but the right-hand side, Phoenix all the while ends up falling down to Tiamat minions there. Nice grouping work from Hurrywin on the Tiamat to cause some pressure, but the Warriors aren't done. They're looking at mid maybe, or they're going to return to base and have to deal with the right-hand side. I think that's the right call.
Yeah, I mean, you only have 50 seconds left on this EFG, but 50 seconds is multiple waves that you could have put some pressure onto that mid Phoenix. Just a little bit of a mental misstep there by the Warriors. It's not that hard to just walk over there and clear out that right side wave as your team is coming down left and just set up for an easier push. That you want all your waves crashing at the same time anyways. It's a little bit missing of their homework. And yes, they get the better Phoenix, but to get EFG 40 plus and then only get and then you trade Phoenixes?
Yeah.
You got the better one, but you're not feeling good about trading Phoenixes that position.
Kubo, a bit of a panic attack there as the taunt came through, but Magi's Cloak keeps him alive for now. 60 seconds that'll be available again, so probably the next engagement, which, funny enough, will be around the next time this enhanced fire giant spawns one more time. I think the biggest point of this so far, the Rivers rebukes from Neil have been very impactful in some of these fights.
Huge.
But more importantly, the Undying Dardes, which we saw him very close to death once. I think that's the biggest play. If they kill the Agony, this could change for Dragons.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, the player damage, he's up top. Him and Hurrowwind have really been putting out the great damage. It's so easy to set up. You know, that stun coming from Umoja is not easy to land at a distance. It's not going to catch someone at max range.
But if they're stood still.
But if they're stood still, say from a Flame Wave Noxious Fumes combo, then they are going to get caught by that stun and force beads or force damage onto them and really change the course of the fight. Those two have worked together very well this game.
And you've seen a couple of those Flame Wave into the, the actual Noxious Fume combos onto the Athena to nullify her setup for the charge.
Yep.
Because every time she wants to use that charge, it's very telegraphed. You're forced to reset on it at least once or twice and make him wind it up again, so don't give him the opportunity. But the Fire Giant is up. Minions on the left-hand side are going to push down relatively well here. I don't think anyone in Dragons is going to head over there at this point now, so they're going to have to maybe have a bit of a race between taking the FG on or sending someone left. And funny enough, the pings to the left-hand side show Sam over there. Oni Warriors should take a fight if they can.
And Sam's going to have to deal with some fire waves.
Few.
Just not enough minions from Tiamat
Here we go with the Fire
in order
Giant.
to push it. So Warriors know there's a 4v5.
And Nika going to have to step up there. Hurry and get some good damage out for a second or two, but Nika's tanky enough for now to hold his own. Kuvo still wrapping round. Rivers rebuke awkwardly placed from Neil there, trying to trap in Polar Bear Mike. Fine, okay. Takes a bit of damage from Kuvo Fred. Fire Giant goes the way of the Oni Warriors here. And meanwhile, Neil's still low, but look at that on the left-hand side. Kuvo looking for a 1v1, it's fine, and finds it. Meanwhile, Darnes is dead as Panda gets the rocket ship off. Hurrywin needs some help and gets a good top from Mike, not enough to survive, as Nika gets credit for the kill. Big impale from Vote, though, to peel away Polar Bear Mike. As Nika now gets a double kill. Neil gets one, and the chase is on for the last member of the Dragons in Polar Bear Mike.
Man, I just don't understand the hesitancy from the Jade Dragons. They wait and they wait and they wait until it's time for the Fire Giant to go down, and then they go in. I like the call to go in. Hurry got a lot of damage off. He got the Athena ult. He was impossible to kill. That worked pretty well, but why did they have to wait until Fire was dead for that to happen?
Mike trying to clear out minions here and use the fire minions to his advantage, and Kubo's got no cooldowns. Weird little trade here. Meanwhile, don't worry about that. Guess what's going on? The Warriors are about to win the game, and Kubo Fred, technically with the celebratory killer to Mike at the tail end. What a crazy set we just saw between the two. But the good news I can say is the Warriors are very happy with that result.
Warriors are getting hot at the right time, and that's what matters. And look, for me, that game comes back to picks and bans. I just think that Umoja was too good. I'm very surprised that Neil got it 2 games in a row. I think teams are going to look to take that away from him going into the playoffs. But overall, Dardes showed us a new pick in the Agni that he looked really, really good on. Vote made a couple of very good plays in the early game in order to keep that game afloat in the Warriors' favor, and Nika continues to look like one of, if not the best solo laners in the entire league. It's been a long ride, Warriors fans, through phase 1, but They're getting there.
And honestly, like yesterday, we saw Nika tweet out after that game, like, listen, we didn't do great, but I feel good about how we're performing and the changes we're making. And that worked out great for them. Game 3 goes the way of the Warriors to make it a 2-1 over the Dragons again, who fumble. We're going to go to a break, and after that, we'll break it down and have an interview with the Warriors.
You can lose your halo. You can lose your halo. You can lose your halo. The lights are fading. Tonight we'll wait past saving. I might not make it. I might not make it. But tonight we lose control. No matter where we go. We're never going home. And you don't even know when I get you alone. You can lose your halo. You can lose your halo. You can lose your halo.
That's it right there.
Welcome back to the SMITE Pro League, powered by Alienware. And of course, if you want to be getting in on some of that gaming like the pros action, keep in mind your friends over at Alienware can get you all hooked up. And of course, smitegame.com/Alienware. Make sure to use code SMITEAW. And like I said, you'll definitely have a chance to be gaming like the pros. And after what we saw from the Oni Warriors here, Gore, what a set to close out the day on.
I mean, absolutely. After game number 1, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, a quick 2-0, guys. I guess that's what we're in store for. And then they push it back, and we're like, oh, well, at least they got to have a good game, right? Going into Game 3, it's just looking at the draft, feels like it should be good from the Dragons, but they came out, and they were so consistent with the way they played that, and to the point where there were even, like, coin tosses in Game number 3 that still went the way of the Warriors. A lot of those matchups, little tiny plays, like that Agni last hit right before he dies. I think it's if Panda turns right and hangs out with the team as opposed to turning left to go look for some other plays. Dardes doesn't live there, and maybe you see FineOK live. Little coin tosses like that always coming up in favor of the Warriors.
And that's the thing. And also, don't get me wrong on this either, but is this not one of the most Neil Moss storylines you could imagine?
It is absolutely.
I understand that the entirety of Oni Warriors was certainly firing off pretty well here, but there's just something about teams that Neil Moss is on where when it really counts, that's where they shine.
He's the main character. Like, if there is a SMITE anime, he has been and continues to be the main character, at least for the last 2.5 years now. And if he can continue things going at this rate, the Warriors are going to be looking good. And this is after a really, really bad start. I mean, they did not look like this team 5 weeks ago. They had no play at this level, and so the way they've been able to come together, whether you want to look at it as the Dragons falling a little bit, obviously they took some of the swords from their logo to help slay them there. I mean, that one was just well played, and a lot of it, I mean, we talked at the very beginning of this set about the junglers. Cuvo played lights out.
That's exactly what you would want as well from Cuvo Fred, such a veteran member on this squad. And good things take time, Gore, and that's really seeming to be the storyline here for the Oni Warriors. This set, I think, deceivingly favorable towards the Jade Dragons because at the end of the day, this is still a very potent team roster. Nika, Cuvo Fred, Dardes, Nilma, Vo, these guys are not unfamiliar with coming up with big on upsets.
And it's one of those things, I want to hearken it kind of to the Scarabs, although at a different level, right? Like, everyone looked at the Warriors this year.
Scarabs, I think you mean the #1 Oni Warriors fans?
Yeah, right now, absolutely. It's just like, you look at sets against the Scarabs, right? And based on their first few weeks of play, it was really easy to count them out of things because they just didn't seem like the team that was going to get it done. And then now they're just starting to get it done for some reason. Something clicked, and they started to figure it out. The Warriors are the same way, except they had a draft that everyone expected so much out of. I mean, you come into this year with a lot of weight on them, and it just didn't quite click until now, but they get a huge win here.
And sometimes you get unlucky every single time. The bit of a heartbreaker in that tweet there from PVM. And I've got a feel for him, man, because Jade Dragons, for what it's worth, they have been, for sure, a shining beacon of power in the SMITE Pro League for split #1 here. So for them to fall now when they're trying to clutch that power seeding, I think, for the playoffs, there's only one man that I'd want to talk to about this, and that's Neil Ma, destroyer of dreams here. Neil, what's going through your mind right now?
It just feels good to finally start clicking and just be in the driver's seat for a lot of games. I think it took us a long time to kind of figure out how we wanted to play the map and the meta and everything. We were behind on all that. And I think obviously the ping, it's not so bad in reality, but mentally it's kind of hard to shake. Like confidence-wise, like me, Fred, and Dardes don't know if you're going to hit everything. Like sometimes you'll lose team fights. It's not because you executed improperly, it's because you missed right. Or it's not because you planned it improperly. You just messed up the execution, right? So I just think it took us a little bit to get in our groove, and now that we just kind of have a bit of momentum behind us, everything is going a lot more smoothly.
Well, you're talking about momentum, but in games 2 and 3, those were some pretty stretched out matches, and a lot of it was just revolving around that enhanced fire giant. So how is the team environment, and really what are the comms like during those instances?
Well, we just kind of devise a plan before we go in. We know what we want to do, so when we get into the fire pit, there's no questions. Like everyone knows what job they have. Everyone knows what they're supposed to be looking for. And it's just a matter of keeping your composure, right? Like in those late games, when the game's starting at 40, 50 minutes, you have to be patient. You have to pick a good spot, and everything can kind of end on a moment's notice at a 50-minute team fight, right? So I think it's just about patience and pre-planning, and then communication-wise, so everyone's staying calm and just keeping the comms clear and everyone just knowing what they should be doing.
Well, despite any of the frustrations that the team might have been facing leading into this set, you guys sure did a great job of putting all of that behind you and working as one cohesive unit. It was really awesome stuff seeing out of you guys today, and looking forward to seeing what more you have in the future for us, because that playoff spot looking awfully nice now for the Oni Warriors. So congratulations, Neil, on the set win for today, and appreciate you for joining us on that post-game interview.
Thank you.
Such a great guy. Neil, man, he's always so... not patient, but just he's really well thought out.
Yeah.
It's very obvious that this team is a team that loves communicating with each other, and especially as a support, where you'd probably expect a little bit more of that shot calling aspect to come into play, Gore. I just think it's really cool when you can see how like calm and collected players are still able to maintain their composure throughout a set.
And that's the kind of, I guess, presence you expect. Like when you look at every story you've heard of their win for SK, their win for PK, when they're in the World Champion stage, it's, hey, we're down 2 games, we're literally about to lose this set. And Neil comes through and is just like, no, we can still do this. Like, we don't have to worry about it. Like, just take it one game at a time. And like that mentality has been so crucial to his career so far, and it continues to pay off, obviously, because it's getting them continually better spots and at least showing a lot of performance increase for the Warriors.
And Neil Ma and the Oni Warriors for sure not in uncharted territories by any means, but looking forward into tomorrow's set, this upset for today is going to have a pretty big impact for tomorrow on that Camelot Kings versus Solar Scarab set, Gore, because we are now looking at a potential situation where if the Bug Boys actually win out against the Camelot Kings, it's going to be them headed to the playoffs as opposed to the Kings.
Yeah, that one nice 1-2 going straight to the head-to-head would absolutely make them feel a lot better. And it's a good, like, today I'm sure the Scarabs were watching probably anxiety-filled, knowing that nothing is in their control, right? Like, they can't figure it out. It's all up to the Warriors. But now that that win is in the bag for the Warriors, everything's right back into their hands, right? As long as they can win that set, which is not an easy task. The Kings are not an easy team to beat, but if you are able to, you will be able to go forward to the playoffs, and that's a position they weren't really in prior to the group stage. Even after the first week of the group stage, it started to feel like maybe they weren't going to be able to crack that shell either. And so now it's all do or die for them.
For sure, and not only that, but the Scarabs as well throughout this entire split and even throughout this group stage, we've seen them come so close.
Yeah.
So if tomorrow is the day that they want to prove to all of us that, hey, we might not have been, the greatest 5 weeks ago in terms of having it all together, but they are clearly a team that is amped up for the improvement. They are clearly a team that is trying to work together to find themselves in more favorable positions, and I am no doubt in my mind that they are definitely looking to do the most against the Camelot Kings tomorrow. And it's definitely a scary matchup because these Bug Boys, man, they really know how to surprise. But, guys, just remember, back at home, you do not want to miss out on these sets tomorrow because everybody wants to find out. Is it going to be Scarabs? Is it going to be Kings? Just make sure that you tune in, twitch.tv/SmiteGame, and we'll see you all then. But for right now, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time.